Chapter 1. Dr. Lachelle Simpson sat at her desk and wished there was a book club meeting the next day, but how could there be? She'd made all the women of the club's wishes come true, sending them back in time, or making them fall in the path of a billionaire. Whatever they wanted, she'd done, but now she didn't have a book club to go to. Pulling up her internet browser, she quickly Googled Book Club New York. She read through several different book clubs' profiles, and when she found what she was looking for, she let out a squeal. This is the one. The new book club was located in Heartsgate, New York, and looked like it took place in a library. She wasn't sure if she was even going to reveal her powers to the women of the new book club, because it made her lonely to have no one to talk books with. Sammy Sunflower was in Kansas, living a life full of twins, and she'd been Dr. Lachelle's favorite book buddy. No matter. She'd have new book buddies soon, and better yet, the book club was out of the city, so she'd get to drive. Her husband Sam didn't approve of her driving in the city. She didn't understand his problem. She'd only hit 3 mailboxes, 4 safety cones, and 1 light post in a week, and her husband said she wasn't fit to drive in New York City. He really did have issues. It looked like Heartsgate was about an hour and a half north of the city, which sounded like a nice drive to her. And this one met every Saturday. Of course, she traveled enough for her matchmaking business that she couldn't always go, but she could go as often as she was in town. She rubbed her hands together. Another romance book club. Another world to conquer. She couldn't wait. Heather clutched her book to her chest as she hurried toward the library, ready to take part in the one activity she lived for every week, book club. The club had been meeting for a while, and she loved that she got to spend time with fellow book lovers. Usually, she and her housemates rode together to the library, where they met, but this week, she'd decided to walk to get a little more vitamin D and sunshine in her life. It was a beautiful spring day in Heartsgate, a small town in upstate New York, where she'd settled after massage school. She'd met her friend and housemate Alyssa in school, and when they'd graduated, Alyssa had invited her to come live in her big house she'd inherited when her parents had died. It was a 6-bedroom, 3-bath house, and it was perfect for Alyssa, Heather, and Holly. Each woman had a bedroom and a room to work in, though Holly wasn't a massage therapist like the other two. She was a writer, a ghost writer in fact. Heather worried about Holly sometimes. Her friend was doing what she loved, sure, but she wasn't doing it in the way she wanted, and Heather sometimes felt that the ghostwriting was eating her alive. Heather rushed into the library and headed straight for the stairs. She sometimes used the elevator, but she was trying to be healthier. She wasn't great at getting out of the house and doing things, though, so taking the stairs was at least a step in the right direction. When she got there, she saw her roommates weren't there yet, so she walked over and sat down next to an older woman with purple hair who'd been attending meetings for about a month. Heather knew a lot of the others thought she was batty, but she didn't care. She liked Dr. Lachelle. "Good morning," she said, setting her book on the table in front of her. The top half of the library was mainly used for book clubs and author events, and they met in a conference room in one corner. They were rarely bothered. "Good morning. Rose, isn't it? I'm not good with names, but I never forget a face." Heather corrected automatically. Dr. Lachelle had gotten her name wrong every single week, but Heather wasn't bothered. It was easy enough to correct her. "What book did you bring this week?" "Oh, this is a favorite of mine," Dr. Lachelle said, turning a historical Western romance over. "I'm addicted to crazy mail-order bride stories. Janelle Daniels is one of my very favorite writers." Heather smiled. Dr. Lachelle seemed to be addicted to a lot of different genres of romance. "I can't wait to hear about it," Heather said. Their book club was different than most in that everyone there brought their own favorite book and spent a few minutes talking about it. That way they all got to talk about books, and something might spark the interest of one of them for a different genre. "What did you bring?" Dr. Lachelle asked. "Same as always. A book about a Highland laird finding love." Heather sighed. "I wish there was a way to live back then, when times were so much simpler." She'd thought about it more than a normal person would have, she was sure. Who wanted to live in a time before indoor plumbing? Heather did. With all of her heart, that's what she wanted. You do? Dr. Lachelle had a twinkle in her beautiful green eyes. I could make that happen. Heather laughed. I wish. Look, Dr. Lachelle said softly, I have the power to grant wishes. I'd be happy to send you back in time to the man of your dreams, but you're going to want to be prepared. The first woman I sent back to medieval Scotland was in the wrong clothes, and it was harder for her than it had to be. You need to get a nice dress made first. Come to me next week and wish again, and I'll make it happen. Heather laughed. You're going to make me go back in time and marry a Highland laird? Dr. Lachelle shook her head. I'll make you go back in time, but marrying the laird is up to you. I'll put you in the right place and right time to meet the man, but I can't make him fall in love with you. She put her finger to her cheek. At least I don't think I can. But I wouldn't if I could. He needs to be able to control his own life, not have me do it for him. Heather was feeling a bit confused, but she suddenly understood why the others thought Dr. Lachelle was batty. But you can make me fall in love with him? Not that either. But I can send you to the man who is right for you, and you can make things happen on your own. Heather thought the woman had lost her mind. No wonder everyone else said she was batty. So, if I come to book club next week, wearing a period-appropriate dress, you'll send me to a Highland laird I could fall in love with. That's right. I'd suggest a solar-powered charger if you like your phone, because there are no plugs of course. The last woman I sent back was addicted to Candy Crush, and she had a hard time. Dr. Lachelle shook her head. I see, Heather said, though she didn't. I guess antibiotics would be necessary. Why not humor the woman? She had a Highland dress in her closet from a costume party she'd attended in high school. It should still fit. Yes, you're thinking about this the right way. You want to take things that won't make you stand out, or you could hide easily, but would make your life more comfortable. It might be nice if I could send you to marry the son of the last man I sent a woman to marry, but I'll have to think on that. He might not be right for you. I see, Heather shook her head, shrugging. I'll be ready next week. She didn't believe the woman could really do it, of course, but it would be fun to prepare for a journey through time, even if she didn't really plan to take it. Everyone else started trickling into the room then, and they got serious about their meeting. Heather's heart wasn't in it though. She couldn't stop thinking about what Dr. Lachelle had offered her. Even if it wasn't possible, what did it hurt to live like it was possible for a week? After the meeting, Heather went to lunch with Alyssa and Holly as usual. Saturdays were roommate days, something they'd decided long before when they all moved in together. They went to the Twisted Kilt, the Irish pub next door to the library, and once they were seated in their usual booth in the corner, Heather told the others what Dr. Lachelle had offered. Alyssa laughed and shook her head. You don't believe her, do you? Heather shrugged. Not particularly, but it might be fun to live as if I'm going back in time in just a week. Why not? Holly leaned forward. I'm not sure if she's making stuff up. I heard a rumor about a book club that all disappeared in Manhattan a year ago. Holly, with her writer's imagination, was definitely more willing to believe the idea of strange things than the other two. Are you sure there wasn't just a mass murderer killing them off? Alyssa asked. Heather shivered. I'm not going anywhere alone with her. I'll have her send me back during the meeting so everyone can watch if that's what she's going to do. I can't believe she's evil, though. Her eyes are so pretty and full of truth. She's just not the type of person to go around killing off readers. Alyssa shook her head. You're too trusting. You're not trusting enough, Holly countered. Heather sat back and let the other two argue for a moment while she thought about what she'd need for a journey back to medieval Scotland. Her phone for sure. She was addicted to some of the games on it. And maybe, well, her iPad. She needed to be able to read. Antibiotics were a must. Maybe some bug spray. When she'd made her skirt for the dance in high school, she'd sewn pockets all over it inside the skirt. It was the last project she and her mother had worked on together, and she could still hear her mother saying, "You never know when you'll need to hide something in a secret pocket. Now you'll be prepared." Her mother had always said silly things like that, helping to encourage Heather's love for life. When she died just months later from a fast-acting cancer, Heather had tried to keep the idea of always having fun in her life, but it had been so hard. Her dad had remarried as soon as she'd graduated from high school, and he'd moved away. She hadn't seen his new home, but on their yearly talks on her birthday, the only time they ever talked, he'd mentioned that she had 2 little brothers now. He had a new family, and apparently, he'd moved on and had no desire to have her around. Earth to Heather, Alyssa said, waving her hand in front of Heather's face. Are you really going to prepare for this nonsense? Heather felt a slow smile cross her face. My mom taught me to take chances and make the most of life. Yes, I'm going to do it. She was sure nothing would come from it, but she could still seize the day. It would be fun, Holly nodded. Good girl. We'll help in any way we can. That's because you two are the best friends a girl could ask for. The very best. Heather gripped both of her friends' hands tightly. Thank you. The week was spent in a flurry of activity. Holly had a friend who lived in Laredo, Texas, who slipped across the border to Mexico and bought up a huge supply of antibiotics and shipped them. Alyssa helped her find a solar charger. They found a bag that could have been used in medieval times and stuffed it with everything they thought she might need, including books, medicine, chargers, and of course, the iPad and chargers. Her iPhone fit nicely in one of the hidden pockets in her skirt. On Friday evening, after they'd all finished working for the day, Heather tried on the dress. With all the extra stuff in these pockets, it's really heavy. Alyssa shrugged. It's the price you pay for staying alive. Holly nodded. You really need antibiotics because you don't know when you'll end up in the Highlands. What if it's during a pandemic? Heather laughed. Alyssa insisted I have a mask to match my dress, so I'd be prepared. I'm practical, Alyssa argued. Anal, Holly said. Be nice, Heather said, shaking her head. How are you two going to survive here without me as a buffer? Don't you worry about us, Alyssa said. Just think about what you're giving up. They'd long since quit talking as if going back wasn't possible. No, they were acting like this was the real thing, and it made it just that much more exciting for Heather. If this is our last night together, we're having Irish nachos, Holly said. I'll get out the air fryer and make the chips. 2 potatoes were sewn into the pockets of Heather's skirt. She wasn't going to give up on her favorite foods for anything. That evening was spent watching rom-coms and laughing, eating and laughing, and a little more laughing. When it was time for bed, Heather couldn't sleep. Instead, she stayed up all night reading, knowing she'd regret it the next day, but her mind wouldn't shut off. She was going back in time to marry a laird. What more could a Highland romance-loving woman ask for? The following morning, she showered and dressed in her dress that was more conspicuous than she would have liked. It was fine for a costume ball, but if anyone asked why she was wearing the dress, answering, because I'm going to a book club meeting, would just be bizarre. The 3 friends drove together to the meeting, and Heather chose the elevator over the stairs. Her dress weighed more than 50 pounds with everything she had in those little secret pockets, and she was sure climbing the stairs would be good exercise, but she still didn't want to do it. When she got to the conference room, she saw that Dr. Lachille was there, and she moved to sit beside her. I'm ready to go, but I'd rather go when the room is full and the whole book club is here. Good idea, Dr. Lachille said. That way everyone will believe from the beginning. Would you believe in the last book club, someone thought I was making people disappear in much more nefarious ways? Not this time. No, siree. Heather smiled. Then it's a plan. You look good in that dress. Do you have everything you need? I do. I have little pockets sewn all through the dress, and there are so many different medications and seeds, and different things like that. I really do think I'm ready. Sounds good to me. Once everyone was there, Heather got many strange looks, but she waited until it was her turn to talk about her book. This week, instead of reading a book, I prepared to go back to the Highlands in medieval times. Dr. Lachille has promised me she has the ability to make me arrive near a laird who would be right for me, so I'm going to wish for that to happen. There were laughs as soon as she said it, but Holly and Alyssa remained straight-faced. Even if they didn't fully believe, Heather was glad to have the support of her friends. Dr. Lachelle smiled. All right. I need you to say the words out loud and start with I wish. Heather nodded and took a deep breath. I wish I could go back in time to when times were simpler. A time when Highland lairds ruled their little portions of Scotland to a man who was made just for me. Dr. Lachelle nodded and closed her eyes. Heather stood for a moment, feeling stupid. It hadn't worked. She had no idea why she'd believed it would. She wasn't a woman given to fanciful imaginings. Everyone was watching her. She felt the eyes on her and she wanted to run from the room, crying. Why hadn't it worked? Not that she'd ever really believed it could. Time travel was for sci-fi movies, not for women who were firmly planted in the 21st century. All at once, she felt the world spinning around her and then nothing. 1279, Scotland. Derek McClain drew an arrow from his back and notched it on his bow. He hadn't heard anything, but he'd felt the presence of another human. And the presence felt. Well, he wasn't sure what the presence felt, which was odd, but he knew someone was close. Who's there? He called out. When there was no answer, he moved in a slow circle, his arrow at the ready. He'd come to the woods to be away from the hustle and bustle of clan life and all the emotions that were always barraging him. As an empath, he had a hard time being in crowds and around a lot of people. He preferred to be alone most of the time, or with his parents. It was easiest when it was just him and his mother, but that was harder to make happen. His mother was a busy lady, and he should be a busy laird in training, but his father, a healer, felt so much that it was difficult. Often, he had to train alone with his Uncle James, for James was the clan's trainer. 'Twas an odd way of doing things, but the truth was, it worked out well for their clan. With his father being in demand as both laird and the Highlands' most prominent healer, he couldn't have very well trained the troops and lead them into battle as well. So that job fell to his oldest uncle, James. His eyes scanned the area around him, and finally he spotted a lass on the ground. She wasn't conscious, and he would have to get his father's help to heal her, whatever her ailment. First though, he would try to wake her. He grinned to himself. With a father for a healer, he often jumped to the most drastic conclusion. Walking to the lass in question, he knelt beside her. Wake up, lass, ye are safe with me. The woman's eyes opened, and he felt fear strike him, instantly knowing it was her fear he felt and not his own. Who are you? He frowned. She sounded a great deal like his mother, who though she'd been in the Highlands for more than 30 years, still had an accent from the place she'd come from. A place she called New York. Are ye from the future? He asked. The girl struggled to sit up and blinked a few times as she stared at him. How did you know that? She held her hand to her head as if it pained her. Ye sound like me mother. Come, we shall find me father, and he will heal your aching head. And then I will introduce ye to me mother. Are ye from Manhattan by chance? Who are you? She asked, refusing his hand as he offered to help her up. Derek McClain. Future laird of Clan McClain. And your name, lassie? He kept his voice soft and even, hoping he could avoid frightening her. Heather. Heather Maguire. Ah. A good Scottish name. Come, Heather Maguire. Meet your future clan. Chapter 2. Heather felt like she'd just stepped into the Twilight Zone. Here she was, with a stranger, and he was acting like it was perfectly normal for someone to travel back in time and just show up on his family's land. How could anyone feel like that was normal, even if they had a mother who had traveled through time before? It didn't make sense for him to be so nonchalant about the situation. He stopped and showed her a place where someone had obviously built up some sticks to try to make something. This is where me grandparents fell in love, he said softly. You see, in me family, the seventh son of each generation has a different power. Me power is to feel the emotions of others. Me mother calls me an empath. Me father can heal with his touch, and me grandfather can move through solid objects. Heather blinked at him. Did Dr. Lachelle put you up to this somehow? She asked. Dr. Lashiel? Derek asked with a smile. That's who Mother says sent her back here. She shook her head. Now I know you're joking. He shrugged. Come meet me parents, and then mayhap you'll understand. Derek led her to a small village of stone huts, and then to a large keep. This is where me family lives. Wait, did you say you're a seventh son? How can you be the future laird then? Heather had read enough Scottish novels that she knew the oldest son was always the one to inherit. I didn't say I was the future laird, did I? Well, no, but I'm supposed to be going back in time to meet a laird. Do you read Highland romance then? He asked, his blue eyes twinkling at her. She bit her lip. I do. You and me mother are going to love each other. He seemed excited. She will be so happy to talk with someone from her time. He walked to the keep and opened the door. How bad is your head hurting, lass? Heather put her fingers to the side of her temple. Very badly. How did you know? Me mother had the same trouble when she came back in time. He led her to a parlor off of what she recognized must be the great hall, where people would gather and eat. She was sure many parties had taken place there in the years the family had been the leaders of the clan. Heather shook her head, wondering how long he'd be playing this game with her. I see. In the room was an older woman and a man. She wasn't sure if she should curtsy or bow or just stand there like an idiot, so she did the latter. Mother, father, I want you to meet me future wife. Heather Maguire, who was sent back in time by Dr. Lashiel. He looked at Heather. Heather, these are me parents, Gavin and Beth, the Laird and Lady McClain. It's so nice to meet you, Heather said, and I never agreed to be his wife. She needed it to be clear that she hadn't become engaged to a stranger within seconds of meeting him. Beth stood up, looking her up and down for a moment. From the future, are you? Where? Heather frowned for a moment, but there was no reason not to answer honestly. Upstate New York, in a small city named Heartsgate. I haven't heard of Heartsgate, but I lived in Manhattan until Dr. Lashiel sent me here. Beth smiled. Are you a lover of Highland romances by any chance? Heather nodded. I am. How did everyone know what she liked to read? This place was downright weird. Me too. That's how I ended up here. Beth hugged Heather. It's so good to meet someone who is from my time. Heather looked at Beth warily. This isn't some sort of elaborate prank set up by Dr. Lashiel? It made no sense at all. Beth laughed. You'd think, wouldn't you? No, it's not. Not at all. I'll show you the remnants of my old iPhone if you'd like. You don't happen to play Candy Crush, do you? Gavin groaned from the chair he was sitting in. Tell her no. For the love of all that's holy, you must tell her no. Heather frowned at the laird. I have never really played Candy Crush. I'm sorry. Why Candy Crush was such a big deal, she had no idea. What games do you play? Beth asked. Could I just touch your phone? Or your Kindle? Please tell me you came back with a Kindle full of books. I had one, and a solar charger, but they broke years and years ago. They just weren't really meant to last a lifetime. Heather pulled back her skirt and pulled her phone out of one of the myriad pockets she and her mother had sewn into it. Here's my phone. It's not an iPhone, though. Like I care about the brand. Do you know how long it's been since I touched a cell phone? Beth held the object to her chest and hugged it. Do you play games? Heather shook her head. I don't. I've never really been a gamer. Now she wished she had been, just to appease this strange woman who seemed as if she would cry with happiness if there was a game for her to play. Beth sighed dramatically. But you have books on it, right? I have some books on the Kindle app. I downloaded as many books onto both my phone and my iPad as I could. Beth squealed with excitement. And since you have two devices to read on, you can share with your future mother-in-law, right? Heather sighed. Is no one listening to me? I said I never agreed to marry your son. She put her hand to the side of her head, wishing the pounding would stop. This conversation wasn't helping her much. Laird McClain got to his feet and walked to her. Mayhap you would allow me to help? At Heather's nod, he put his hand against her cheek and all of the pain faded away. He looked pained for a moment, but then he smiled. All better. She frowned at him. How did you do that? She had never felt anything like it. Derek grinned. Me father really does have the healing touch. I see that. She looked at Derek for a moment. This is real, isn't it? Dr. Lashiel really sent your mother back in time? It was starting to click. It really seemed to be the only logical reason they'd know as much as they did. Beth nodded emphatically. She really did. How's she doing, anyway? What year are you from? 2020, the year the world stopped turning. Why would you say that? Beth asked. You need to hear about how awful 2020 is, but not just yet. Seriously, it's the year to end all years. Heather looked at Derek again. Why is a seventh son going to be the laird of his clan? That doesn't make sense to me at all. 'Tis the way it has always been in me family, he said. Me father was a seventh son, and his father before him. Laird Gavin nodded. Sit down, and I will do me best to explain. Heather took one of the empty chairs, very aware that Derek perched on a stool directly beside her. Explain. Me family is one who has 7 sons every single generation. It has happened that way since our Norse family settled in Normandy. We came over to England with William the Conqueror and later moved to Scotland. The 7th son always had a bit of extra something. A sort of luck. When one of those 7th sons married the daughter of a Saxon woman of power and a Norman, 'tis when things became strange. Now every 7th son has some sort of power. Me grandfather can make crops grow, which is how our family began ruling Clan McClain. Me father can make himself intangible. I have the power to heal. The most important power of all, Beth said. And the most exhausting power to my way of thinking, Derek nodded. Father has always been one to have to leave at a moment's notice so he can take care of people who are afflicted with disease, accident, or even old age. Heather frowned at the man in question. And that's how you healed my headache? This was all incredibly far-fetched, but she'd just traveled centuries back in time. Who was she to question? It's how I heal whomever asks me to heal them. I travel all over the Highlands, healing the people who send for me. Gavin sighed. I feel as if I missed most of my boy's childhood, being a laird and a sought-after healer. That must truly be overwhelming at times. Heather couldn't imagine a doctor leading a clan, let alone someone who could lay his hands on people to heal them. Aye, it is. And the people? They know of your healing touch? He shook his head. Nay, we keep our family's gifts hidden. I put salve on a wound, or I bandage it rubbing a potion on it. Or I give a tonic to drink. People believe I just have a way with salves and tonics. No one but those who live and work in the keep know the truth about me, then why risk telling me the truth? Heather asked. You don't know me. It didn't make sense to her that they were being so open when they usually weren't. Because Dr. Lashiel sent you back, Beth said softly. You're out of your time and you need protection. You really don't have much of a choice but to marry Derek. No one else will understand who you are or why you're here. Heather frowned at Derek. But what if he doesn't want to marry me? Oh, lass, there's no question of me wanting to marry ye. Ye are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, and you belong to me. I could sense it before you even woke. Derek put his hand on hers. So, you said you're an empath. What am I feeling right now? She asked. He didn't hesitate. A little scared. A lot excited. A little amused. Skeptical. Ye are not sure if we are telling you the truth. He'd summed up her emotions better than Heather could herself. That's amazing. 'Tis my gift. Or my curse. However you want to say it. Do you feel like it's a gift or a curse? She asked. Mostly a gift. At times, a curse. I know me father feels the same about his healing abilities. "'Tis true," Laird Gavin said. "For years my parents despaired of me having a gift, and they thought that was over when I was born, but now, well, I have a very important gift, but 'tis one I would gladly give to another if I was certain they were willing to use it for good." "How could healing be used for bad?" Heather asked, not really understanding. "I've never used my gift for ill, but I had a great-grandmother, I know not have many times great, and she once used her healing gift to suck the life force from someone. It was something she needed to do to save the world, so I dinna think she did wrong, but I do not want to give a bad person the power to do that." He shrugged. "I truly dinna know if I could do it even if I wanted to, but I dinna feel like I could risk the gift in another." "That makes sense." Heather frowned. "So, I suppose there's to be a wedding. We'll take a few weeks to plan it, Lady McClain?" She knew enough of the Highlanders' ways that she knew it would be up to her to plan the wedding and the men would have little to do with it. "Oh, nay," Derek said. "I dinna want to wait to plan anything. We can marry on the morrow. I want few people there." His mother nodded, frowning at him. Derek's gift is wonderful for understanding others, but if there are too many people around, it overwhelms him, and he must seek solace in the woods. "I assume that's where he found you." Heather nodded, not having thought of that. "So, we won't always have a house full of people?" Derek shrugged. "We will have some at all times, I'm certain. We need to have people in and out as I do my duties as laird, but that will be long into the future," she said, "right?" Beth smiled. "Another thing that's strange about the McClains is that the seventh son always takes over as laird as soon as he marries. There's a little house in the village with our name on it. It will be nice when Gavin only has to be a healer and not a healer and a laird." "I look forward to more time with you also, my love," Gavin said, looking at his wife. "And I look forward to time with you," Beth said softly. Heather realized that she could hear the New York in the older woman's voice every time she spoke. Sure, it was hidden under some of the Highland lilt that was filling her voice now, but she could definitely tell she was not from around there. Heather frowned. "So, you're saying that Derek and I should marry tomorrow, and he'll become laird immediately?" "That's crazy talk." Derek laughed. "I have been training to be laird from the time I was weaned. I promise you, I can handle the duties, though it will be easier with a good woman at me side." "I'm sure it will." Heather shook her head. "Everything is moving so quickly." Beth got to her feet. "Aye, it is. And it will for a time. Come, I'll show you to your chamber, where you'll sleep for the night." "Just the one night?" Beth nodded. "As my mother-in-law did before me, I will arrange for my things to be moved tomorrow. You and Derek need the entire keep for your own as you grow used to marriage. I don't need you to move out." Heather hated the idea of losing the only person who understood the 21st century. "I said the same thing many years ago. But I was wrong, and you are too. You need to have that space to get to know my son and for the two of you to become closer." Beth smiled. "And if you need me, I'll be in the village ready to help where I can." Heather frowned, following the older woman up the stairs and down a hall. "This is the only dress I have," she confessed as they reached the room that would be assigned to her for the night. She was embarrassed she hadn't thought of bringing another dress with her. She should have taken a little longer to prepare and made one. "I only had a pair of slacks and a blouse when I came here," Beth said with a twinkle in her eye. "My mother-in-law, Gillian, whom you will love, burned them before anyone could see them, and then she and my lady's maid, Kirstine, helped me sew all new clothes. I won't have to have a lady's maid, will I?" Beth shrugged. "I would say it would help. Kirstine's daughter is just about the right age to be a good friend and confidant to you." "Why do I need someone?" "Because you will need someone to be on your side at all times. During my wedding feast, I became overwhelmed by the sheer number of people in the keep several times, and Kirstine watched my face and whisked me away every time. She helped me understand the culture and the time period in a way no one else really could." "I see." Heather sighed. "I guess maybe I do need someone if this girl wouldn't mind." She hated the idea of having someone trailing after her at all times, but she could see the benefit as well. "Aileen would be honored, I promise." Beth smiled, opening the door wide to show Heather the room. It's small, but it's all you'll need for the night. This was Derek's room when he was a boy. There was a bed, a chest, and a chamber pot in one corner of the room. And trust me, as much as it seems distasteful now, you'll get used to the lack of indoor plumbing. Do you want me to have a bath brought in? Heather shook her head. I showered right before I went to book club this morning. I'd like to bathe before the wedding though. Are you sure I need to marry tomorrow? Derek seems, well, he seems so distant. It was hard for her to imagine being married to the man. He's had a lot of years to practice shutting others out emotionally. If he doesn't, he has a very hard time. Trust me. It's for the best if you marry right away. It's easier for the clan to see him married without meeting you than for them to ask questions about who will be the wife of their leader. It's what we needed to do when I arrived as well. Beth smiled at Heather. Trust Dr. Lachelle. If she sent you here, then this is where you're meant to be. Heather sighed softly. I trust her. I think. Beth laughed. And if she comes back here to see you, I want you to make sure to let me know she's here. I love her and it would be nice to get a booby bump. She called it booby bumps with us too. I'm not surprised. Her affectionate term for hugs is the way I always think of embraces now. I have to keep myself from shouting, booby bump, every time a friend embraces me. I manage, but it's difficult at times. Heather grinned. You can whisper it to me anytime you want to hug me. That sounds like a good plan. We'll be eating supper in about an hour. Do you need any help before that? Heather nodded. I need a different dress. This one has a million little pockets that my mother and I sewed into the skirt, and they're all full. Beth stepped back. Pockets? Where? On the inside. Oh, that's brilliant. Beth smiled at her. You obviously had more time to prepare for your trip into the past than I did. I just wished I'd been wiser about some things. Chapter 3. After supper, Derek asked Heather to walk with him, and she nodded. She really did need to get to know him better before they married. I need to help with the dishes first, she said. Beth shook her head. No, we have a kitchen staff. You just go and get to know my boy. As they stepped outside, Heather was happy she'd asked for a different dress to wear. The other was really weighing her down more than she'd realized. Your mother is very nice. It seemed like an inane way to start a conversation with the man she was about to marry, but what should she say to him? She is. She will be a good ally for you to have. I'm glad because I already feel like she's on my side. He gestured toward the back of the keep. Let us walk around the loch. I'd like that. Heather took a deep breath and accepted the arm he offered. Tell me about yourself. Derek shrugged. I feel like you already know everything. I am a seventh son, so the youngest boy in my family. There are no girls, and I hope you didn't want to have daughters, because you will not get one. The seventh son always has 7 sons and no girls. Every generation it works that way. Really? That's odd. 'Tis how it has always been. Me mother had a hard time believing at first too. And are you happy to know you will have no daughters? Heather asked him. She was almost relieved to know she wouldn't have to worry about whom her daughters would marry in that time period. It would have been hard enough in the 21st century. He shrugged. I suppose. I always knew how it would be, so I will not be even a bit surprised. I see. And granddaughters? Only the 7th son will have only sons. The other brothers have sons and daughters. You will have nieces as well as nephews and eventually grandchildren. Heather stopped walking. Wait. It just occurred to me you want me to give birth to 7 sons without the benefits of an epidural. He chuckled. I have heard me mother talk about epidurals and how they are necessary for childbirth. Father can lessen the pain that comes with giving birth for you, if you find you need that. If, she asked. You mean when, right? Heather shook her head. The most painful thing a woman can go through, and I'm expected to do it 7 times without good drugs. "'Twill be all right," he said, his arm going around her shoulders. "That's easy for you to say. You won't have a baby squeezing out of your most delicate parts without pain medicine." Heather shuddered just thinking about it. "Does this mean you now feel like you should marry me?" he asked. "I don't feel like I have much choice. Your family, well, you don't really ask a lot of questions. Anyone else would." "That is very true. I am glad you understand. Well, I don't like the idea of you having to marry me simply because you're the one who found me. Are any of your brothers unmarried?" He frowned. "You want another?" He'd thought they were in agreement about marriage, and now she was looking for another man who she could spend her life with. "No, that's not what I'm saying. I just don't think you should be stuck with me." Derek shook his head. "I feel anything but stuck with you. Let me show you how I feel for you." With that, he put his arms around her and lowered his head to hers. As soon as his lips touched hers, Heather knew marrying him was the right thing. Sure, she'd been kissed before. There had been boys in high school, but this was something she'd never experienced. Her entire body felt as if it was tingling, and her belly felt as if there was an entire flock of butterflies trying to get out. Her arms went around his shoulders, and she pressed her body against his. No matter what else happened, this first kiss with him, well, it was like something straight out of a romance novel. She moved to her tiptoes, still trying to get closer to him. She ran her hands over his shoulders and down the muscles of his arms. Finally, she took a step back, but her eyes were glazed as she looked up at him. "You pack a wallop in that sexy kilt of yours," she said softly. He seemed slightly out of breath. "You'll be my wife on the morrow." After that kiss, there was no way he was letting her off the hook. "It's strange to me that sometimes I can hear the New York in your voice, and sometimes I can hear the Highland. I was brought up with both influences," he said, smiling. His thumb traced her lips. "I look forward to having you as my wife." She blushed. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I can feel your emotions, remember. Your passion for me is as strong as mine for you." She turned away, embarrassed. "It's not fair that you know how I feel all the time. When do I get my power?" He laughed. "I am sorry, but it doesn't work that way." "It doesn't?" "Nay, it truly doesn't. I have a power that I will use to help both of us though." "Does that help?" She nodded. "I suppose it will have to be enough." She would have liked for them to be starting out on even ground, but there was no way to arrange that. As they continued their walk, she told him that she'd brought some seeds from New World Foods. He groaned. "Tacos? Are you as obsessed with tacos as my mother is?" She let out a bark of laughter. "I'm a French fry girl, but I'm always happy to eat tacos." She knew a lot of people were obsessed with tacos, but as much as she liked them, there were definitely foods she liked more. "Mother has tacos once per week. She calls it Taco Tuesday. She's odd at times." Smiling, Heather took his arm again. "My roommates and I did the same back in New York. Every Tuesday night was Taco Tuesday. Sometimes we did chicken tacos, sometimes beef, sometimes we just did refried beans. Dr. Lachelle brought everything we would need to make tacos. Mother said she misses going out for tacos, but that she's happy to grow her own as well." Heather laughed. "She's going to love that I brought potatoes with me. And cocoa beans." "What is a cocoa bean?" She blinked a couple of times. "For making chocolate." "Your mother has gone without chocolate for your entire lifetime? Are you kidding me?" "She's mentioned it a few times, but never really said how it was made." "This cocoa bean is how you make chocolate?" "It is. And I'm going to grow it. If I can." She frowned. "I've never been much of a gardener." "Dinna worry about that. My great-grandfather can grow anything." She tilted her head to one side. "Your great-grandfather is still alive?" She didn't think people lived that long in medieval times. "Aye. My father makes sure his parents and grandparents are always in good health. I know they won't live forever, but they will still live a while." "That's wonderful." I guess I never thought of that aspect of things. Can he heal himself? Heather asked. She hadn't intended to end up in a paranormal historical Scottish romance, but here she was, and here she'd stay. She'd figure out all the ins and outs of things as quickly as she could. He cannot. I wish he could. It would be nice if we had a son who could heal him, wouldn't it? She asked. He smiled, pleased that she seemed to accept now that they would marry, and she would bear his sons. It would be very nice. As they got back to the keep and went inside, there were voices, and they followed them to the great hall where his parents were sitting with his brothers, sisters-in-law, nieces, and nephews. Beth called out to them. Derek, bring Heather to meet your family. Derek called back, yes, Mother. But he took a few gulping breaths, and Heather looked at his pinched face. It's hard for you to be around even your family, isn't it? He nodded. It's my life. Taking her hand, he tugged her toward the table where his family sat, and he smiled. Everyone, this is my betrothed, Heather. Heather, this is a large crowd of people whose names you will need to learn eventually. There was laughter at that. I'll do my best, Heather said. It is a lot of people. She was happy to see there were as many little girls as there were little boys. Ye came from the future? One of the men at the table asked. Just like our mother? Yes, I did. Dr. Lashiel sent me back to this time. The men looked at each other. Dr. Lashiel, ye say? One of the other men asked. She nodded. It was the strangest thing. One day she just started coming to our book club, and she told me she could send me back in time to marry a laird. Of course, I didn't immediately believe her, but I decided to humor her and let her try, and here I am. Interesting, one of the other men said. Are all of you Derek's brothers? Heather asked. Aye, one of the men responded. And our wives and bairn, of course. Of course. Heather took a deep breath. I know the story sounds preposterous, but it's true. If they believed Beth had come back in time, then they would have to believe she did. Do you have the game where you break the candy? One of the wives asked. Beth told me about it long ago, and I wanted to try to break it myself. Heather shook her head. No, I didn't play many games on my phone, but I do have books on them. And you'll read us these books? One of the other wives asked. I guess I can. Beth laughed. You can skip over the naughty parts. Heather grinned. I'm glad you knew what I was thinking. The very idea of reading a sex scene aloud was, well, it made her uncomfortable. If she were living in her own romance, then the sex had better be behind closed doors. Beth nodded. We'll have a sewing day sometime soon because Heather arrived with nothing just as I did. While we sew, Heather can read to us. Gavin shook his head. I am happy none of the men will be invited. Me too, Heather said, grinning at the other women. It would be fun to read the books she'd brought and sit with them, learning about them. There was noise behind them, and another couple came into the keep, this one much older. Heather, these are my grandparents. I showed you in the woods where they fell in love. The older woman smiled. He told you about how his grandfather saved me life? Heather shook her head. No, he didn't. Well, let me tell you. Heather listened intently as the woman told a fantastical story about how when they were mere children, her husband had plunged his hand into the chest of a wolf and pulled out his heart. You must have been frightened. Terribly, but I knew Kenan would save me. The woman's eyes were full of love as she gazed at the man beside her. 'Twas the day I vowed I would marry him. And you did. Many years later, of course, Jillian said with a smile. We always played together as children, and I grew up knowing I would someday be lady of this keep. I'm glad it happened for you then, Heather said. She couldn't imagine falling in love as a child and always holding out hope of marrying one man. But of course, she was standing beside the man she meant to marry, and she'd only met him hours before. She was in an entirely different situation. Beth stood up. Heather is going to read to us from one of her Highland romances while we sew someday soon. I hope you'll join us. I wouldna miss it for all the sheep in Scotland. Heather smiled at the turn of phrase. I'm looking forward to it, she said shyly. It was strange to be accepted by all of these people when she'd expected to have to try to fit in. Now she was being asked to read aloud from a device that shouldn't exist yet. It made her wonder if there were others who were here in a place out of their normal time. And a wedding on the morrow, one of the other wives said happily. Derek frowned. Everyone knows how I am in a big crowd. Would you mind keeping it quiet that I marry so the keep isn't filled with the entire clan? Beth nodded. I think that's what we need to do. Then that's exactly what we will do, Laird Gavin said. 'Tis me last night as laird, and I can make the decision. Gillian sighed. But there will be no way to keep the clan away after the wedding. You'll need everyone to meet your bride and welcome you as the new laird. Derek nodded. I just want to put it off as long as I can. He wanted to be able to concentrate on his bride during his wedding and not worry about the emotions of any of the wedding guests. One of Derek's brothers clapped him on the shoulder. We will all do our best to keep them from you during the celebration. And you can keep sneaking off to steal kisses with your bride. 'Twill be a good excuse to be gone for a moment or two. His brothers obviously understood his need to be away from crowds. I dinna need an excuse to kiss me wife, Derek said happily. I will happily sneak a kiss whenever I can. Heather didn't know what to do other than blush. I don't mind sneaking away for kisses myself. The laughter that followed that statement made her feel as if she was a part of the big family surrounding her. No, she didn't know names yet, but she would soon, and they were all so welcoming of her. It felt right to be here. Now, if she could just fall in love with the handsome man beside her. Not that she thought that would be hard. He was her hero after all. Early the following morning, there was a knock on Heather's door and she hurried to see who it was. Beth, come in, I have ordered your bath. This is Aileen. I mentioned her mother, Kirstine, to you, and she's going to be your maid, if you'd like. Heather bit her lip. The idea of someone being her maid was strange, but she was certain it was necessary, at least for a while. Yes, of course. Come in, Aileen. Tell me about yourself. Aileen shrugged. 'Tis not much to say. I am the youngest of Kirstine's daughters, and my family has served your family for generations. I'm happy to be given the opportunity to serve you. Heather smiled. And have you been told about me? Aileen looked at Beth, who nodded to her. I grew up knowing about the oddness of the McClain family. I will happily be your maid and help you hide your secret. Thank you, Heather said. I appreciate that. I aim to be of service. Aileen quickly moved out of the way as several servants carried in the bathtub and more followed behind with buckets of hot water. I'll stay to help you with your bath. Heather felt strange that someone would feel the need to help her bathe. I can bathe myself, she said softly. Beth shook her head. You're going to need help. I promise this. Heather took a deep breath and nodded, smiling at Aileen. I'd be happy to have your help. Heather understood what Beth had meant as she went to wash her hair and there was no shampoo. Why hadn't she thought to put shampoo into one of her little pockets? There were so many modern conveniences she was going to miss, and then she thought about Derek. His smile made her feel like she should swoon. Maybe he was worth giving up every modern convenience for. Once she was out of the tub, Aileen helped her dress in the McClain plaid. She wished there was a mirror, but of course, there was nothing like that yet. Someday. When she was dressed, Aileen had her sit, and she went to work on Heather's hair. Her hair was long, almost to her bottom, and it was dark. As Aileen worked, she talked about what she was doing. I thought to leave most of your hair down for the ceremony, but I'll form a crown of braids atop your head with some of it. Does that sound like what you would like? That sounds wonderful. Heather hadn't even thought about how hard it would be to do her hair with no mirror available. She was honestly surprised at all the things she'd taken for granted about living in 2020. As soon as Aileen was finished, she and Heather went out to see Beth. Beth looked at her and smiled. You're beautiful, lass. Heather frowned. I feel strange without underwear. Beth laughed. Trust me, you'll get used to it. And you will never miss wearing a bra. I guess. Beth and Heather descended the stairs together to see Derek, Gavin, and the rest of the family waiting for them at the bottom of the stairway. Beth hugged Heather. "Welcome to the family, dear daughter. Love my son." Heather nodded, feeling panicked. What was she thinking to marry an absolute stranger? She thought engagements of less than a year were crazy pants. And she was marrying a man she'd met the day before while not wearing any underwear. Derek held his arm out for her, and together they walked to the priest. Heather was a little surprised that the ceremony was conducted in Latin, but she followed along well enough. And when Derek leaned down to kiss her, she knew she was his wife. She was spending the rest of her life with this stranger who made her heart beat faster. Chapter 4. After the wedding, there was a family meal with just Derek's brothers and their families, and then the keep was opened up for the clan. Gavin went out on the balcony on the upper floor of the keep, and he made an announcement. "I have given my blessing for my youngest son, and your new laird, to take a sweet bride. Her name is Heather, and she is now the lady of our clan. I would appreciate help moving mine and my wife's things to the cottage beside my parents." There were many cheers, and men began filing into the keep to carry the former laird's things out. Through all the hustle and bustle of a feast day, Heather kept a close eye on Derek. She waited for him to be overwhelmed by the emotions of the people around them. Once she saw him glance across the room and wince, and she went to him, took his hand, and tugged him from the room. "I think it's time for one of those newlywed kisses," she said softly. Derek smiled. "Thank you. Did it show so much that I was getting overwhelmed?" "To me it did." Heather was glad she was already able to read him. "Well, I appreciate the rescue. And of course, the kiss." He leaned down and took her lips with his, this kiss more passionate and more needy than the one the previous evening. When he finally raised his head, she sighed happily. "Maybe marrying a stranger wasn't such a terrible idea after all," she said softly. "Maybe not," he said. "I canna say I want to complain." She smiled at that. "Are you ready to go back?" He nodded. "There was someone in that room who wasna happy with our marriage. I could feel their anger, but the room was too full to be able to know who it was. Usually he could tell if it was a male or female he was sensing, but the anger was so overwhelming, he could sense nothing else." "You didn't have a girl you were interested in, did you?" He shook his head. "Nay. It was too hard for me to be around the women of the clan. 'Tis much easier with you." "I dinna know why." "I don't either, but I'm glad it's easier with me." She rested her forehead on his shoulder before leading the way back into the great hall where everyone was gathered. One of his brothers raised a glass to him. She wasn't sure what was in the glass, but she didn't let herself worry about that. "To Derek and his beautiful Heather. May you live in happiness and have many sons." Everyone in the room cheered at the toast, and Heather leaned into Derek. It felt odd that people were toasting their sons when they had barely even kissed, but she could understand that this odd family would say that. Someone from the back of the room shouted, "Kiss her." Derek complied and they all shouted and cheered once again. It wasn't long before Heather understood the drain on Derek's emotions a gathering like this had. She was overwhelmed herself, meeting so many new people and trying to remember names and relations. It must be so much more so with him feeling what everyone in the room was feeling. Finally, late into the night, the doors to the keep were closed, and Heather walked up behind Derek, kneading his shoulders and neck. He groaned softly. "Your hands are magic, lass." "That feels wonderful." Heather laughed. "I just realized that I never told you how I supported myself in New York. I'm a massage therapist. This is what I did for a living." "Oh, aye. And you can do it for your husband now." "I canna believe how all of the emotions of the clan seem to be drifting out of me." She worked on his shoulders a little more. "Let's go upstairs," she said softly. "If you undress and lie on the bed, I can do a better job." "You want me naked on the bed, lass?" "I can make that happen easily. Though I'm not sure I'll let you rub my aches away once I'm unclad." She laughed. "That's not exactly what I meant, but I suppose a massage can lead to other things." Never had she been attracted to anyone she massaged, so it would be a strange experience for her, but it was one she was certain she'd enjoy. She liked the idea of his hands on her skin as well. As they went upstairs, she realized this man meant more to her already than she would have thought possible. She'd made the right decision to come here and marry him. She just knew she had. The next day was spent with Derek in the keep, with only the servants about. It was nice to have some time with just her husband, and Heather was thrilled to take it. They talked a great deal, and she felt like she was really getting to know the man she'd be spending the rest of her life with. After they'd eaten their last meal of the day, he took her for a walk, and showed her where his mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother all lived. The Campbells are me grandmother's people, and they are the next clan over. Me great-grandfather finally stepped down to let his oldest son run the clan, but he is still in good health, thanks to me father. I will take you to meet me grandparents one day this week. They will love you immediately. But for now, I want you to meet me great-grandparents who are here on McClain land. Heather frowned. Were they at the wedding yesterday? She couldn't imagine why his grandparents wouldn't have come. Nay. They know the trouble I have with overwhelming emotions, so they stayed away. Grandmother sent me a note to bring ye to meet her this evening, so here we are. I would have done my hair nicely if I'd known. She patted the sides of her hair, which she knew were messy. She hadn't been able to figure out how to do her hair without a mirror yet, and Aileen hadn't come that day. Ye look beautiful. Dinna worry. Grandmother will love you. He knocked twice on the door of a small cottage, and it was opened immediately. An elderly woman reached out and pulled Derek down for a hug. It is good to see ye, she said. Heather was surprised at how spry and healthy the couple looked, despite their obviously advanced ages. I'm Heather, she said softly. And I am Katerina. My husband is Braden. Her husband stood beside her, a smile on his face. The seventh son has finally married. Welcome to our family, Heather. He leaned down and hugged her. I hope ye are ready for the sons. Heather frowned. I'm not certain I am, but I know they're coming. She studied the older man for a moment. Derek tells me you can make any plant grow. Of course, I can. 'Tis me gift. I have seeds that haven't yet been discovered by this part of the world that I would like to grow. He smiled. Ye are much like Derek's mother. She asked for the same thing. You don't mind, she asked. Nay. I like to show off me powers. I still help the crops of our clan grow when no one is looking. Oh, good. I'll bring them by sometime soon. I would like that. I keep a little garden in the back, where I grow the things Beth needs for her tacos. I can do the same for your favorite things. Thank you so much. No need for thanks. You are me granddaughter. Heather felt warmth wash through her at the words. She barely knew these people, and as far as they knew, she'd fallen from the sky, but they opened up their arms and embraced her with no questions asked. They were truly a loving family. She'd never known her own grandparents, and she would be happy to call Derek's hers. I'll be the best granddaughter I know how to be, she said softly. You must sit down and have some sweets, Katerina said. I prepared something special for your visit. Heather was unsure what to expect, but what she bit into tasted somewhat like shortbread, and she smiled and nodded her thanks. This is delicious. Thank you. You must visit often. I can't wait to get to know Derek's bride. Katerina tilted her head to one side. You speak much as his mother does. We come from the same place, Heather replied, unsure how much Katerina knew about Beth's origins. Ah. Now I understand. Were you sent by Dr. Lachille? Heather smiled. I actually was. She's an interesting woman. Beth says she has hair the color of heather. Yes, she does. It's strange even in our time. Well, I would like to meet this woman, because she sent me 2 granddaughters. Heather couldn't help but smile at that. I would love to introduce you. After their visit, Derek took her back to the keep. I thought it would be best if I didn't warn ye about meeting me great-grandparents before we went. I knew you would be nervous. And I would have been. Thank you for thinking of my feelings. She was surprised he was already so careful around her. He was a good man. He smiled as he led her up the stairs. I hope ye have enjoyed our first full day of marriage. The morrow is Monday, and I must get back to training with the men. Are you in charge of training them? She asked. Nay, my uncle has had that task for many years, as me father dinna have the amount of time needed to train them properly. Now I pray that he will continue the task, because I am not sure I can deal with the anger involved in training. I can understand that. Will your uncle be willing? I do not know. If I had known I would be marrying so soon, I would have talked to him about it already. Derek shrugged. If he doesna want to continue with the training, me brother Logan will be willing. He is a good man, and he is the best fighter I know. Other than me uncle, of course. Of course, I hope your uncle will continue, because it sounds like that's what would be best for you. What would be best for me is to have you rub me shoulders again, he said, grinning at her. Do you mind? Not at all. She was amused by how he seemed to switch between an old Scottish accent and modern speech. She knew it had to be his mother's influence, but she liked it. A lot. Thank ye. He stripped and lay down on his stomach on the bed as if being naked in front of her was nothing. She tried not to think about it as she worked on his shoulders and neck, which both held a great deal of tension. It had to be exhausting to feel not only your own emotions but everyone else's as well. As she worked on him, she wished there was someone there she could trade massages with. Perhaps she would need to teach Aileen to give a good massage. Heather barely saw Derek the following day, and she was happy when Beth came over with all of her sisters-in-law. They all sat in the great hall and Heather read to the others from one of her Highlander romances. At so many points, the women would stop her so they could laugh over something in the book. The way a man talked to his wife. The things the people in the book ate. Heather hadn't realized so much was off in the books until the women pointed out each thing to her. She had always known they were fiction, but knowing they were as fictionalized as they were was strange. While she read, the other women sewed. They made her dresses and nightgowns. She felt like she should be doing some of the sewing, though she wasn't nearly as skilled without a machine as she was with one. I really feel like I should be working with you, she said as they took a break to have lunch. Beth shook her head. Not at all. We're all a great deal more entertained by the book than we would be doing something else. We need a reader. I could probably have my iPad read it aloud, she offered. I think we all prefer it when you read, Beth said with a smile. Jillian came in then, sitting at the table to eat with them. I couldn't get away until now. I was attending Sarah's birthing. The baby is well? Beth asked. Jillian smiled and nodded. For a short while I was wishing Gavin was there to help, but it all came out fine in the end. Good. Beth smiled. After losing her last two, I'm sure she's thrilled to be holding her bairn in her arms. She is. Where is Gavin today? Off to help the McPhersons. The laird's son is ill. Ah. I hadna heard that yet. Jillian shook her head. I still hate it when he goes to help that clan. Beth nodded. He'll be exhausted by the time he gets home. Jillian shook her head. At least they no longer steal me grandchildren to get his help. Heather stared at the two women who had been speaking in shock. They kidnapped a child to get Gavin to heal someone? The day of my wedding, actually, Beth said, shaking her head. I don't know why they thought that was acceptable, but Gavin healed their laird. I don't know if I could have helped after that, Heather said. Not many could, Jillian said. Me boy has a much kinder heart than most people. Heather couldn't stop thinking about someone kidnapping one of her children to get Gavin to help them for the rest of the day. She read a couple more chapters of the book aloud, but her mind was still spinning. When Derek came in at the end of a very exhausting day from the look on his face, she asked him about it. Did you know one of your cousins was kidnapped to get your father to heal a laird? Derek nodded. Aye. Someone tried to take me once when I was a lad, but me mother told them that if they so much as took me 1 foot off of McClain land, she'd see to it that father never healed anyone in their clan again. I was left alone after that. That's awful. Heather said, shaking her head. How do we know that won't happen to our children? The very idea sent chills of fear through her. And she knew it would only be worse once she'd held her child in her arms. I guess we canna know that. 'Tis one of the dangers of being a healer. Or the son of one in this case. It has been communicated to all of the clans that Father will heal anyone for the asking, and there is no need to resort to taking the children of our clan. It's been a very long time since anything like that happened. He covered his mouth with his hand as he yawned. What did you do today? She asked. He shrugged. I worked with the other men for a while, and then I spent some time in the woods calming down after there was a fight between two of the men during training. It was so overwhelming when emotions were high as they tended to be on the training field. I'm sorry. What did you do? He asked. Your mother and sisters-in-law came over, and they all sewed for me while I read. Your grandmother joined us right after lunch. Did everyone like the book you chose to read? He asked. She laughed. They spent most of the day telling me that the authors of my time have no idea what it was like to live in the Highlands. And they're right. We have been able to find small clues that tell us how things could have been, but most are guesses. The authors do their best, and they tell very entertaining stories, but they're not always accurate. How could they be? He nodded. I see what you mean. It is nice to know that we Highlanders are thought of as sexy in your time. It makes me want to flex my muscles for the ladies of your book club. Heather shook her head. They wouldn't know what to think. She laughed, trying to picture the looks on her friends' faces. What about you? Would you like it if I flexed my muscles for you? He reached for her hand and tugged her onto his lap. She laughed, snuggling close to him. I guess I'd probably like that a lot. Wanna see? He chuckled. Mayhap. Tell me more about our clan, she said. Are we a wealthy clan? He laughed. The clans of the Highlands are rarely wealthy, lass. We get by, but my family's powers help a great deal. Some have tried to pay Father for his healing, but he will not accept. Me great-grandfather accepted payment for his help with other clans' fields. Oh, when do I need to meet your other great-grandparents? She asked. On the morrow. I was thinking we could ride over in the morning, if you would like. I would like. She bit her lip. I haven't ridden since I was a little girl at camp though. I'm not sure if I could stay on a horse. Then you can ride with me. I like that idea, actually. He waggled his eyebrows at her, and she laughed. It was strange how comfortable she already felt with this man. I do too. Heather sighed. I hope they like me. Why wouldn't they? He asked. They are good people, who have lived long and healthy lives, thanks to me, Father. They will like you. I hope so. Dinna worry too much about it. The only person in this clan who really needs to like ye is the one ye are using as a chair. She laughed. Does that mean you want me to move? She didn't bother to remind him that he'd pulled her there, because she was sure it would do no good. He shook his head. Nay. I like ye just where ye are, lass. She sighed, resting her head against his shoulder. I think I like it a bit too much, she said softly. She was already falling for this man. Dr. Lashiel had definitely picked the right man, and more than that, the right clan for her to join. She'd never imagined it could be such an easy transition. Of course, she'd only been there a couple of days, but surely things would stay the same as they were. Chapter 5. Shortly after they'd broken their fast the following morning, Derek helped Heather to the back of his horse. Hold on tight, lassie. I dinna want to lose you between here and me grandparents' house. Heather didn't have to be told twice. Number 1, she had no desire to be bucked from the back of a horse. And number 2, and the most important of the two, she enjoyed holding on to him. It made her happier than anything else could. The ride was a short one to the next clan's lands, and when they arrived, he dismounted and helped her down. Me grandparents are vera old, older than most. Me father keeps them alive with his healing. I have a feeling I will lose me parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents all at the same time when me father dies. He will not be able to keep the others alive anymore. He looked sad at the idea of losing them all, and Heather understood completely. It would be hard to lose so many people she loved all at once. That will be a sad day, she said softly. It will. He handed the horse off to the stable master, and the two of them headed into the keep. He walked right in, calling out, "Grandmother! Grandfather, I have brought me wife to meet you." An old woman shuffled into the hall to look at them. "We are in the parlor, Derek. Bring her in." She went back into the room where she'd come from, and Derek followed her, pulling Heather along with him. "Grandmother, grandfather, this is me bride, Heather." His grandmother looked her up and down and finally nodded. "She seems like a good fit for you." Derek smiled at that. "Aye, she is." He walked to an empty chair and sat in it, and Heather took the chair beside him. "You're moving slowly, grandmother. Would you like me to send father to help you?" His grandmother shook her head, but his grandfather was nodding his. "She is a stubborn old woman, Derek, but she needs someone to take care of her, and in this case, that means your father healing her. 'Tis her knees and hips again." "Aye. I will tell him when we arrive back on McClain land." Derek knew to listen to his grandfather where his grandmother's ailments were in question. "Thank ye," his grandfather replied. "Tell us about this beautiful lass ye have taken for your bride." Heather squirmed a little, not sure what to say. Instead, she let Derek answer. "She comes from near the same place me mother does. A time vera far in the future. She was sent back by the same woman whom they call Dr. Lashiel." Grandfather frowned. "And your mother has spoken to her? She believes her?" He obviously thought it was far-fetched, but he was willing to trust Beth. Derek nodded emphatically. "Aye. She knows too much about the future to be from anywhere else." He paused for a moment. "I can feel your concern, grandmother, but I know 'tis all right. I promise you this." His grandmother nodded. "Aye. I suppose I should stop worrying. 'Twould make me feel better," Derek said with a smile. "But I love that you worry about me." They spent the day and into the afternoon, having a noon meal with the older couple. Heather didn't ask what was being served, because she had a feeling it would be best if she didn't know. Haggis in particular scared her. As long as she didn't know what it was, then she could be content eating it. That was her theory anyway. As they left, Heather embraced the older woman. "Thank you for accepting me so quickly." She couldn't have been happier with the welcome she'd received from his family. "Aye, you make our Derek happy." "That is easy enough to see." His grandmother smiled at her, the wrinkles in her cheeks deeply denting her face. "I try. If you put making him happy first every morning, you will have a good marriage." "I'll try." Heather hadn't thought of getting marriage advice from his great-grandmother, but when it was offered, she would gladly accept it. Once they were safely back on McClain land, Derek and Heather walked to the cottage where his parents had taken up residence. When they arrived, they were invited in to eat with the older couple. "I feel like everyone wants to feed me," Heather said. She wasn't as nervous about food that Beth fed her, as they'd talked about what it was like to eat such foreign foods. When a plate of tacos was set in front of her, Heather laughed. "How did you get tacos?" She'd heard stories about his mother having his great-grandfather grow foods, but she wanted to hear it from his mother. "You brought potatoes, and I begged for lettuce, tomato, and corn seeds so I could make my own tacos. I know it's weird, but I missed them something fierce." Beth shrugged. "You know all those taco memes that were always on social media? Yeah, those were meant for me and only me." "So, you celebrate Taco Tuesday in medieval Scotland? Is that even lawful?" "No one has ever presented me with a book of time travel laws," Beth responded. "I just do what feels right to me." She picked up her taco and crunched into it. The shell was a little misshapen compared to the ones Heather was used to, but she didn't mind. A taco shell was a taco shell. She'd even be happy with tostadas. "I can see that." Heather didn't argue and bit into her taco. Delicious. When I get my potatoes planted, I'll share. Don't forget me other great-grandfather would love to grow them for ye, Derek said. Which brings me to the purpose of our visit. Beth frowned. What happened? She looked at her husband, obviously expecting he would need to hurry off and heal someone. "'Tis just that Grandmother Campbell is starting to have problems moving again. Grandfather says her knees and hips are paining her, and she needs to be healed." Gavin looked at Derek. "But there's no illness, and it's not life-threatening. Just normal aging aches and pains?" "Aye," Derek said. "No hurry. I will be there on the morrow, just making sure I shouldn't go tonight." "Nay," Derek said. "Grandmother Campbell would skin me alive if I let you think it was an emergency." He understood his grandmother well. Beth laughed. "She would. She definitely would. That woman hates when she needs to be healed anyway, and for someone to think her pains were an emergency, I can just picture how angry she'd be." Gavin nodded. "'Twould not be a pretty sight." "Your grandfather is doing well?" Derek shrugged. "Same as ever, I think. His knee is paining him again. I almost feel like we should just move to Campbell Land so I can keep a better eye on them. They're getting too old to have to wait for their aches and pains to be healed." "Nay," Derek said. "If you did that, I would have no idea what I was doing as laird." "I already have no idea, but not having you close would make things much worse. You'd have your grandfather and great-grandfather to call on." "Why do you need me?" "Because you're me father." "No one knows me better than you do," Derek said with a smile, crunching into his taco. "Did you make these, Mother?" Beth laughed. "Nay, you know I have them made at the keep. They just bring them over now." She laughed, and Heather knew from the tone of it, she was not a woman who cooked often or willingly. "I was hoping ye'd say that," Derek said. "Me mother is not fond of cooking." "I can understand that," Heather said. "It's not my favorite thing either. Though I'll soon make my Irish nachos for everyone to try." "I'm intrigued," Beth said. "What do you put on them?" "They're basically homemade potato chips with queso and bacon on top. And I'll be coming for supper the night you show the kitchen staff how to make those, right?" Beth hinted. Heather laughed. "It never occurred to me I could teach others to make them and not have to do it myself." She found she was very enamored of the idea of having people whom she could tell what to cook, and they would just do it for her. "Work smarter, not harder. That's my motto too," Heather said with a smile. "I like you, Beth." "I hope so, because I'm the only one you could possibly discuss movies with at the moment." The men were mostly quiet through the meal as the two women compared favorite books and movies. Both had grown up in New York City, so they talked about different Broadway plays they'd seen. When they both said Wicked, at the same time, the men seemed utterly baffled, but the women continued on as if they weren't there. "How did you manage being the only person from the 21st century here?" Heather finally asked. "Being able to talk about modern life makes it so much easier." Beth nodded. "It would have been easier for me too, but I'm happy you're here now. It makes me feel a little less crazy. If it wasn't for weekly taco night, I'm not sure I would even believe I'd ever lived in another century." "Do you find yourself losing your identity?" Heather asked. Beth shrugged. "If I thought my identity was wrapped up in who I was in the 21st century, then I'd definitely lost myself. But I have found a new identity here. I don't need to be a CPA to be happy. Instead, I have found the love of my life and have had 7 children with him. I don't feel lost. I feel found." Heather nodded. "You were a CPA?" "I was a massage therapist." "No way. I have this kink in my neck." Beth rubbed the side of her neck where it hurt her. Heather laughed. "One your husband couldn't heal for you?" "One that needs the expert touch of a massage therapist. We need to have someone build you a massage table." "That's an idea. I don't really need to earn money, but I could do it for people I like." Beth nodded emphatically. "Like me. You like me best, right?" Derek shook his head. adding to the conversation for the first time in a long while. She likes me best. Heather laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. He has a point, Beth. I guess he does. Beth smiled at the two of them. I'll talk to someone about building a massage table. I suppose a dinner table would work in the meantime. It could. Heather made a face as she thought about it. We could use a dinner table, put a couple of layers of blankets on it, and then use that as a massage table. Beth nodded emphatically. We're brilliant. Yes, we are. Derek looked at his father. Any idea what they're talking about? Gavin shook his head. Nay. And I think that's for the best. On their walk back to the keep that night, Derek asked about the massage table. You know how I rub your shoulders at night? That's what I did for a living in New York. I went to school for it, and I'm gifted in what I do. There was a special table I would have people lie down on so I could massage them easier. This special table will make your massages better? He seemed intrigued at the idea. She nodded. It will make it so I can do a better job when I do a massage. I don't see myself doing a lot of them, but it sounds like your mother misses massages. I will see to it that a craftsman begins work on this special table on the morrow. Derek was excited at the idea of her massages being better than they had been, because he'd been very impressed so far. I guess I'm back in business then. Heather wasn't sure if she was excited by the prospect or not, but all the work she'd put into learning to give a good, professional massage wouldn't be wasted. Perhaps she could even teach someone to massage her. That felt like the best idea of all. You would massage better now if you did it on the dining table? He asked. It would be an all-right solution for the short term. The actual massage table would be best as a long-term solution. Then we will make sure you have one. He rubbed the back of his neck. When I am around people, I feel a great deal of tension in my shoulders and neck. Today, I felt the pain of my grandmother, and it lingers. So, you need a massage this evening? Heather asked, having no problem seeing where he was going. I think I do. Derek put his arm around her. I think you are the woman I needed to have sent to me. Because I can give massages? She asked. Well, there's that, but you are willing to help others with your skills. That helps a great deal as well. He shook his head. I would think you were a great wife if you didn't know how to give a massage at all. I sure hope so. Tomorrow I want your grandfather to grow some potatoes for me. I want to make Irish nachos one day this week. They're my favorite. She would just have to figure out how to make them without all the modern gadgets she normally used. I do not know what a potato is, but I'll help how I can. There's cheese around, or should I make my own? She'd bought a book on cheese making for her iPad just to be certain. There is cheese. Derek shrugged. I remember when I was a boy, my mother would constantly work on making a cheese she preferred for her tacos. Oh, that's right. There was cheese on the tacos. That cheese would be perfect for what I want to do. And not having to make her own cheese would make her task much easier. Then you will be able to make your Irish nachos. Mother has often talked of potatoes, and I look forward to trying them. You're going to love them, I promise. Back in the keep, she immediately headed up the stairs, yawning behind her hand. It had been a long day for both of them. I believe I will love anything that ye have a part in making, he said, smiling at her. You're going to be a good husband, aren't you? I will try me very best. He followed her up the stairs. Ye haven't forgotten me massage, have you? Heather rolled her eyes. She'd created a monster. Early the following day, while Derek was off training with the men, Heather headed to his great-grandfather to have him grow the potatoes for their supper. She'd thought it would be months or even a year before she could have her Irish nachos again, and it had made her crave them more than ever. When she arrived at the little cottage, she was welcomed warmly by the sweet couple. You have something for me to grow? Braden asked, rubbing his hands together. I do. I brought potatoes that were already sprouting a little, because I wasn't sure what month I would arrive here. He nodded, looking at the 4 potatoes she held out for him, each one with the eyes sprouting. If we cut them into 4 pieces each, I think they'll grow faster, he said after touching one of them. These look like interesting plants. You're going to love them, Heather said with a smile. They're one of the best things to come from the New World. Let's take them outside after we cut them up. The old man looked downright excited to grow something new, and Heather didn't blame him. How monotonous their meals seemed in this period. If she could spice them up a little, she would. She was used to the variety that living in New York offered, and there was definitely something missing here. Katerina trailed along as they cut them and then dug several small holes, dropping a piece of potato into each one. As soon as Heather was done, he looked behind him, and then put his hand on the ground in the middle of them all. As soon as he'd lifted his hand, Heather dug up the sprouted pieces of potato to find the largest potatoes she'd ever seen. She'd had some huge potatoes in restaurants, but the best Idaho farmer would be jumping for joy when he saw those. She gathered them all up, leaving 4 to sprout so they could grow more. When they didn't all fit, grandmother found a couple of baskets to carry them in. How many people do we feed at the keep on a normal night? Heather asked, wondering if there were enough potatoes that everyone could have some. Not more than 10 most nights. And many won't try the new dish until others have said it's good. Katerina smiled. They were the same when we came here from England, not wanting to try new things. Heather nodded. All right. She looked at Braden for a moment. Thank you so much for doing this for me. You'll take care of the other potatoes and make sure they sprout and don't die? I'm not sure a plant can die when it is in me home, Braden said, a smile on his lips. Then I'll trust you with it. Thank you again. Heather carried her 2 baskets, which were overfilled with potatoes, back to the keep and straight to the kitchen. She'd seen it, but she hadn't had time to spend much time with the women who worked there. I would like something special to be made for our supper tonight, Heather said softly. She wasn't certain if the women would do as she bade them or if they would resent her. It was time to find out. A woman turned from the stove. She smiled. We would be happy to make whatever you'd like. I'm going to show you how to make it, because it's not something that's made in this area often. Do you have the cheese Beth used for her tacos? Of course, we do. We can't run out of Beth's cheese. Will we need cheese? We will. For the next hour Beth showed the kitchen staff how to peel potatoes and slice them thin to make chips from them. She could taste the nachos, and it was hard to make herself go slowly enough that the meal could be replicated by the staff without her the next time she wanted it. By lunchtime, there was a small plate of nachos for her to try to see if there were any tweaks needed before the meal could be used for the entire group who would eat there. Beth walked into the keep just as she sat down with her plate of Irish nachos, and she immediately took one from Heather's plate. You said you'd invite me. We're having them for supper. I'm just trying them to make sure we don't need to make any tweaks before everyone tries them. I want to have a Nacho Wednesday. Beth laughed. We're going to mess up history if we're not careful. Heather frowned. Do you really think so? Not really. Not if we only keep them in a small group where not everyone has them. No one will ever know. Beth shrugged. That's my theory anyway. Oh, good. I don't want to mess up history, but I don't know that I want to go without my favorite foods either. What else did you bring? Beth asked, snagging one more nacho. Cocoa beans. You didn't. I think you're my favorite person in all the world. Beth spread her arms wide with excitement. I did. How was I going to eat chocolate without them? I still need to figure out how to turn the beans into chocolate, and how to get Grandfather Braden to grow them for me. He loves showing off his power. He feels like he's been sitting on a shelf for a whole lot of years, so being useful makes him very happy. You're going to have all the cocoa beans you need. Beth smiled. These nachos are really good. Heather slid the plate toward her mother-in-law. It was a bigger plate than she could finish anyway. I've been working on perfecting them since I moved to Heartsgate from Queens. There was a little Irish tavern there that made them for me, and I miss them so much. My mom worked there when I was a little girl. She remembered going in and sitting on a bar stool, and her mother would bring her a plate of the nachos to munch on while she was there. The memories washed over her as she shared the nachos with her mother-in-law. You look sad when you mention your mother. She died of breast cancer when I was 16. Heather sighed. She helped me make the costume I came here in. Beth covered Heather's hand with her own. I know you miss her, but I promise, there are at least 4 women who will do their best to take her place here. I know there are. Thank you for caring about me when you've known me such a short time. Well, you're my daughter now. And these nachos will keep you in my good graces forever. Beth took another cheese-covered potato chip from the plate. Keep you in nachos to keep me in your good graces. I understand now. At least you know I tell you the truth. Chapter 6. By the time supper was ready, Heather had spent most of the day in the kitchens helping slice potatoes. It made her really miss having a Tupperware mandolin at her disposal. That thing could slice potatoes as thin as she wanted them to be sliced and nothing flat. When it was time for supper to be served, she smiled as her in-laws walked in with Derek trailing behind them. I invited Gilly and Kenan as well. I hope you don't mind, Beth said. Of course not. I made half again as much as I thought we'd need. I am excited to try these Irish nachos of yours, Derek said. Mother said she had some with you for the noon meal and they were excellent. I said they were to die for. Beth shrugged. Sometimes my boys won't quote my modern slang. Heather shrugged. They're silly then. Each plate of nachos was brought out separately instead of letting them serve their own, which was more normal in their family. But the couple sat down together, and Derek's great-grandparents joined them as well. As they ate, Braden smiled. I like these potatoes. I will grow as many as you need. This is the worst way to eat them, Heather said with a smile. It's not healthy to deep fry anything, but they're so delicious. She suddenly wished she had her air fryer as well. So many modern gadgets made life easier and healthier, but they walked so much in this time it made up for the fried fat. She hoped. They are delicious, Braden said with a smile. What other ways are there to eat them? There are so many. Heather said. You can bake them, where you just wash them and stick them in the oven. You can peel them, add butter and milk and mash them, Beth said. I like them au gratin, where you add butter, milk, cheese, and a little flour and bake them. Beth nodded. And there's always French fries. With a little bit of taco meat on top and some cheese melted. She licked her lips. Gavin smiled at Beth. I think you missed these potatoes as much as you would have missed your tacos. Potatoes and chocolate too. Thank heavens Heather thought to bring cocoa beans, and we'll have chocolate soon too. Heather grinned. It's not easy to eat like it's the 21st century in the middle of medieval Scotland, but I'm going to do my best. Everyone enjoyed the meal, and Gilly told them how much she was looking forward to trying the new food in different ways. I think we'll have fun showing you different ways to eat them, Heather said with a smile. Beth nodded. I'll even help teach the women in the kitchens how to do them in different ways. Oh, Heather, when we start growing the cocoa beans, we need to have brownies. You have no idea how much I've missed brownies. I can imagine, Heather said, shaking her head. Didn't you have warning before you came back? Beth shook her head. Nope. I was the first person Dr. Lachille tried to grant a wish for. It worked, but we didn't know it would, or I'd have prepared myself first. After supper, the 4 couples sat in the parlor talking until late into the night. Heather felt like she got to know each of them a little bit better. And only the 7th son has powers, she asked. That's how it's worked so far, Braden said with a smile. My grandmother had the power to control the weather, and she came from a woman who was the youngest of triplets, all of whom had great powers. She controlled the weather? That's so fun. I think that's the power I'd want. Heather had thought a lot about which power she would want to have since coming in time. Beth shook her head. I'd want to be able to fly as fast as Superman. Oh, that'd be good too, or swim like Aquaman. Underwater. Or couldn't Wonder Woman float on the air currents? Heather asked. I guess there are more powers that sound good than I realized there were. Running across the water like Flash would be good too, because we could get more foods that were found in the New World. She'd never realized quite how obsessed with food she was until some of it was no longer available to her. The others just listened as the two of them talked about superheroes for a short while. "I think we're boring everyone," Beth said, looking around her. "You don't have any idea what it's like to finally be able to talk to someone who understands me so well. We didn't know each other back in New York, but we lived in the same culture, so we understand so many things that the other says." Gilly shook her head, smiling. "No, we're not bored. We're happy you finally have someone you can talk to the way you can talk to Heather. I think she's going to be as good for you as she is for Derek." "In very different ways, of course," Heather said, winking at her mother-in-law who laughed. Beth laughed. "I'm just really glad you're here, I hope you know that." Derek reached out and took Heather's hand. "Not as happy as I am." "So, about that massage," Beth said. Heather laughed. "Derek had someone come and talk to me today about what I needed while I was slicing potatoes. I can't believe how long it takes to slice them without a mandolin. I don't think I've ever done it the real way before." "So, is he making the table?" Beth asked. "I'm not worried about the potatoes now that my belly is full. Now we need to talk massage." "He is. He said it should be ready by tomorrow afternoon. It won't have the face hole, but I've always hated that thing anyway." "Me too," Beth said, shaking her head. "So, tomorrow afternoon you can set up shop in one of the boys' rooms upstairs and use it for massages until the babies start coming." "Will I have a little time before they come?" Heather asked. The idea of having 7 sons so quickly was a little overwhelming to her. "Not usually," Jillian said. "I had my first within 10 months of marriage." "I did too," Beth said. She looked at her husband. "Gavin?" Gavin moved to Heather, holding his hand over her. "May I?" At Heather's nod, he touched his hand to her abdomen. "Not yet." Heather breathed a sigh of relief. "I want a little time with Derek before I start having babies." She looked forward to having children. Well, except for the whole labor without good drugs thing. But she needed time with her husband first. She felt like they'd barely scratched the surface of getting to know one another. Derek smiled. "I'd like that too, lass." After everyone else had gone, Heather went to the room she'd slept in her first night there, thinking about how things could be rearranged for her purposes. When Derek followed her, she said, "I'm going to turn this into my massage room. I know your mother needs a massage, and I would bet your grandmothers would all like them as well. And this table that's being built really will help with the massages?" He looked skeptical, but she could tell he was listening to her as the expert on the subject. "It will help me," she said. "I could massage someone as they sat in a chair or laid on a bed, but it would be more painful for me. It's better for my comfort if they are on a massage table, which will be built to my height specifications. I think that will be good then. I look forward to my first massage on it." "You should." She grinned at him. "You're going to like getting a real one." He pulled her to him, burying his face in her hair. "I know I will. I'm glad you were sent back to me. You seem like something is off tonight." "Off?" he asked, shaking his head. "What does that mean?" "You seem like something is wrong." "It was a hard day," he said. "There was some fighting among the men today, and they made me feel all the anger they felt. It was mentally draining. And then having everyone here for so long this evening was difficult, as it always is. My mother is so excited about you being here, and those emotions pour through me. It's hard. I can see that." "Is there no way for you to block your powers for a short while?" she asked. "Nay. There never has been. When I was a boy, I rarely left me mother's side, because to be away from her meant all the emotions poured into me. It was easier for me to stay inside with her. It made people think I was odd though." She wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. "I hope it's not difficult for you when our children start coming. I can imagine having all those emotions, on top of the ones you already feel, is going to be very hard." He shrugged. "'Tis my lot in life. And it helps at times." He didn't tell her that he'd felt a mix of overwhelming anger and sorrow again that day. He didn't know who it was coming from, but there was one of the men who did not like it that he'd married. If he could figure out which one, it would be easier for him, because then he could confront the man. I hope it gets easier. She walked from the small room, carrying her candle with her. Let's go to bed, shall we? I'm always willing to do that. It makes me happy. She smiled. Me too. The next day, Derek started trying to pinpoint the person from whom the strange emotions were coming. He worked with the men in smaller groups, but he had difficulty figuring out who it could be. These were all men he'd known his entire life, and it made no sense that one of them would not like it that he'd married. When he went home for the noon meal with his wife, he asked her to take their lunch and walk with him instead. I can't breathe with all the emotions coming at me today. I need to be away, if only for the time it takes to eat. Then let's get away. Heather would never argue that he wanted time alone with her. How could she when she enjoyed it just as much as he did? He took her to the spot in the woods where his grandparents had fallen in love. This place brings me peace, he said softly. Knowing what transpired here all those years ago makes me feel like I should be here. Any place that brings you peace is where you should be, she told him. I can't imagine feeling barraged by emotions all the time. 'Tis hard for me, he told her. I have no idea how it would be without it happening, but I do know that feeling anger or sorrow or happiness and being forced to feel what others feel is very difficult. He shrugged. Like I feel your pity now. Dinna pity me, Heather. 'Tis how I am, and there will be a reason I am meant to be this way. You've never been called on to use your power before, she asked. He shook his head. I have always had the power to do as needed, but I have never had to do it. All the men who have gone before me have used their powers for something important. I have not yet. That's strange. She shrugged. I'm sure there's a reason for your power. I am just as certain. He led her to the small falling-down structure where his grandparents had fallen in love. The Irish nachos were wonderful. I will eat them every night if you wish. She laughed. They're too much work for every night, but I'll have the kitchens make them often. She was excited to introduce potatoes into the medieval diet. By the end of the next day, Derek was concerned. The anger and sorrow were starting to completely overwhelm him. He didn't know if he should look for the person who felt that way or hide himself completely away. He decided the best thing to do was to talk to his Uncle James, the man who was in charge of training the clan. He followed the other man home from work so they could talk. There is a man who is feeling hatred and sorrow on the training field. James frowned at him. Hatred and sorrow? 'Tis strange. It really is. I dinna know what it could be, but I know 'tis not good. I canna figure out who it could be or even why. I have no idea. I haven't seen anyone show signs of anger toward you, James said. Do you want me to try to figure out who it could be? Derek sighed. I dinna know if it is important enough to take you from your tasks, but the feelings are overwhelming to me. 'Tis hard for me to stay on the training field. I can understand that. Mayhap I should ask around and see if we can determine who it is and why. I am afraid that if you ask, people will hide it. Derek shook his head. Only family, James. In a clan, we are all family, James reminded him. But I can. I will see what I can do and have all your brothers and cousins searching. How much longer are you willing to keep training the men? Derek asked. I dinna think I can do it with me power being what it is. I will do it and start training one of your brothers to take me place. Thank you, Uncle. Derek felt odd knowing he was now in charge of the man he'd always looked up to. You are valued by this entire clan. James smiled. I thank you for that. Derek turned and headed back to the keep and his wife, but he felt the anger of another following him. When he turned to look, there was no one there, and as much as he wanted there to be an answer, he had to satisfy himself that there was not one yet. When he walked into the keep, his mother was coming down the stairs, rubbing her neck. Your wife has the most amazing hands I've ever felt on my body. Derek smiled. Does that mean she has her massage table? It does. I bet she has time to work on you before supper too. I'll go and see. Thank you for being such a good friend to me, Heather. I know what it's like to be away from all you've ever known and not even have indoor plumbing. Beth embraced Derek. She's a good woman. Aye, she is. As his mother left, he went up the stairs to his old bedroom. I think I need a massage as well, Heather. Heather laughed. I was just setting up the table for you. I thought you'd be in soon. She explained to him that it would be best if he stripped, and she talked to him about what the massage would be like while he undressed. I will do the same as I've done to your shoulders, but all over your body. All over me body? He asked. Even. No, not there. I'm not that kind of massage therapist. As soon as he was undressed and face down on the table, Heather put her hands on him, and she could feel the tension in him. She was used to not talking to a massage client unless they spoke to her first, but she knew it would be better if she could get him to talk while he was relaxed. He seemed to be hiding something from her, and she needed to know what it was. Did you have a good day? She asked. It was fair. Derek wasn't about to tell her about his worries. He was certain there was someone wanting to hurt him or her or both of them at that point, and he didn't want to frighten her with that knowledge. Heather frowned. Is your uncle going to continue to train the men? Aye, he is. He plans to teach one of my brothers to train the men when he is finished. The job will never fall to me, which is good. It sounds like it is to me. Heather dug her elbow into a particularly bad place on his back. You are very tense tonight. Did something happen? Asking him flat out might be the only way to get a real answer from him. Nay. Nothing out of the ordinary. I trained with me men. I see. Heather sighed. I had the cooks make mashed potatoes for supper tonight. I think you'll like them. It sounds like you plan to have these potatoes of yours often. Will you mind? Heather knew that not everyone enjoyed potatoes the way she did. It was good for her that she'd always been naturally slender. Nay, not at all. I enjoyed them last night. I am certain from the way you and Mother talked that I will continue to enjoy them. Your parents are coming over for supper again tonight, she said, finally willing to let the subject of his training drop. There was something going on, though, and she wished she knew what it was. I am not surprised. I believe me grandparents will be here as well. They do love those potatoes of yours. Chapter 7. They fell into an easy routine over the following days, though Heather still worried that Derek was hiding something from her. She had no idea what it could be though, so she didn't keep bringing it up. Many of the members of Derek's immediate family discovered what Heather did for a living, and Heather found she was constantly busy giving a massage to someone. The women all paid her by sewing her garments or baby clothes for the sons they all knew would come. Beth became a close companion, with the two of them enjoying one another's company, and sharing the iPad Heather had brought with her. They both treated it as a precious object, afraid to drop it or hurt it in any way, even with the life-proof case Heather had put onto it before going back in time. Heather enjoyed getting to know everyone around her, and she found she had little difficulty settling into the role of lady of the clan with Beth there to help her. She'd been there less than 2 weeks when Derek came home after training one afternoon, looking particularly agitated. What's wrong? She asked. He'd seemed more and more upset every day as he came in at the end of his training. Derek shook his head, looking over his shoulder as if he expected to see someone there. Of course, there was no one behind him. Derek, we're not going to be able to have a good marriage if you don't tell me what's bothering you so much. I know there's something, and there has been since I arrived. He wasn't sure what to tell her. I just feel anger from someone, and I feel like it has to do with our marriage. 'Tis anger, mixed with sorrow. I thought it was coming from one of the men, but I canna be certain. Have you told anyone? Heather felt fear trickle up her spine. No one in our clan would hurt you, would they? Already she felt as if she belonged there because of how kind everyone had been. Nay, I dinna think so. He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the tension spread through him. I have felt it every day since your arrival, and I dinna know what to do. I talked to me Uncle James, and he has his sons and me brothers on the lookout, but we have found nothing. Heather bit her lip. Should you be training with the men knowing that? Shouldn't you stay somewhere safe? I dinna think I am the one to worry about, lass. 'Tis you I worry for. I would like one of me brothers to start guarding you. She wrinkled her nose. Guarding me? I don't need someone watching over me all the time. I've taken self-defense classes. I dinna know what a self-defense class is, but whatever, I still want me brothers watching over you. She sighed. I suppose I don't have a choice. I canna give you one. Heather couldn't help but notice that the more nervous he was, the more he spoke in his Scots accent instead of his mother's New York accent. It was strange to watch him transition back and forth so quickly between them. Then I guess I will have a guard starting tomorrow. Will that guard stay outside the room when I'm giving a massage? Aye. Ye can have your privacy when ye are massaging someone. Good. What about when you're with me? Do I need a guard then? He shook his head. When you are with me, then I will care for ye. I see. She sighed. I suppose that's what we'll do then. She wanted to protest and scream and yell that she could take care of herself, but she knew better. She wasn't in 21st century New York where she could call 911 on her cell phone if there was a problem. She'd never really realized what a great equalizer technology was. Is tonight Irish nacho night? He asked. Heather couldn't help but smile at the change in conversation. Yes, it is. And yes, all of your grandparents, brothers, nieces, and nephews, as well as your parents will be here in a few minutes. We're feeding potatoes to an army centuries before they came to Scotland. Aye. And me family loves it. He grabbed her by the waist and pulled her to him, kissing her softly. We will get through this together. I know we will. They were interrupted by someone calling out to them. The sons will come in time. Now 'tis time for potatoes. Heather pulled away from Derek and looked to see who was there. His parents stood there with silly grins on their faces. The sons will be here soon, I'm sure. Heather sighed. Too soon for her. She needed more time with Derek. They had to find out who was so angry with him if nothing else. Or her, but she had a hard time believing she could be the target of anger, when she'd barely gotten to know anyone yet. Gavin walked to her as he did every time they were in the same place, his hand automatically going to her abdomen. This time, he smiled and nodded. Your first son. Heather frowned. Already? Beth laughed. I told you it would happen quickly. At least you have Gavin to help you through labor and childbirth. I guess I'll have to be happy with that. There's no choice, lass, Gavin said with a smile. The future of the clan is with you. As others piled into the keep for nacho night, nothing more was said about the baby Heather was carrying, and she was glad. If there was some sort of danger for her and Derek, it didn't make any sense at all for her to have a baby then. Of course, it wasn't about her timing. Late that night, after everyone had eaten their fill, Heather lay in Derek's arms. Do you think the baby is in danger? Derek hesitated a moment too long. Nay. No one would do anything to me wife and the lady of this clan. Heather knew the answer he'd given her was the one he thought she wanted to hear. He didn't think she and the baby were safe. She lay awake deep into the night, wondering who wanted to hurt her. She hoped she never had to find out. The following day one of his brothers appeared just after breakfast, and he was her shadow for the rest of the day. Heather didn't appreciate having a guard over her every move, but they had to be as protective of their baby as they could. Maybe she wasn't quite ready to be a mother yet, but that didn't mean she didn't love her child with everything inside her now that she knew he existed. By the end of the day when Derek joined her, Heather was ready to scream. She disappeared into her room to use the chamber pot at least a dozen times when she hadn't needed to. She wasn't even allowed to sit in her room and read without his brother standing over her. The brother was nice enough. Broderick was the second brother in his family, and she had a good relationship with his wife. She just didn't want to have to answer to every second of her day with someone looming over her. It was starting to make her crazy. Broderick said little, but he was always there. Always. Derek came to her just before supper, and he nodded at his brother. Thank you for watching over her. Broderick nodded. Any news on who it is? Heather didn't have to ask what that meant because she knew. And she needed Derek's answer just as much as Broderick did. Derek shook his head. Nothing. I'll keep listening for something. Broderick nodded to Heather and left. As soon as he was out of earshot, Heather said, "Please don't make me endure another day with a guard. Let me go stay with your grandmother Campbell. I just cannot deal with someone looming over me every minute of every day." Derek shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I need ye close. I hate it as much as ye do." "I don't think that's humanly possible," she said, plopping down in one of the parlor chairs, glaring at him. "There has to be something else we could do. If there was, we'd do it. I promise ye this." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Just a little while longer, I hope. I hope so too, because I'm going to be absolutely batty in another week of this. I'll double me efforts to find whoever it is." Heather sighed. "I wish I could explain how much it bothers me to have someone hovering around all the time." "What if I found a lady who could protect ye?" he asked softly. She laughed. "Like that exists in this century. Actually, me brother Callum's wife, Annie. She is better with a bow and arrow than most men. And she has skills with a knife and sword. Would you prefer it if she guarded you?" Heather blinked a few times. "Annie? She's a tiny little thing, she couldn't hurt a fly." "Aye, she could. I once saw her slay a wolf." "Annie or another of me brothers?" "You may choose." "Annie. Definitely Annie." Heather had a hard time believing the tiny woman could be skilled with weapons, but if she was, it would make things a lot easier for Heather. "I will talk to Callum tonight. Mother will take Annie's bairn for the day." "Bairn? I don't want to take her from her child. Bonnie is 3 summers, and she loves to spend time with me mother. It will be fine. I haven't seen Aileen lately. Do you know what happened to her?" "Aileen? Your maid?" "Nay, I haven't seen her in a while, now that you mention it." "Did she not tell you where she would be?" Heather shook her head. "I expected her to come back after we were married, but she never did. Odd. I will talk to Kirstein about her and see what is happening." They ate alone that night, which was rare. She had taught the kitchen to make her favorite recipe for baked potato soup, and Derek said he enjoyed it. "I usually prefer more meat in me meals, but this was tasty." She smiled. "You did have chunks of bacon on top of it." "Aye, and that made it taste better." He took her hand and led her from the keep. "Let us go and talk to Kirstein together." As they walked, the back of Heather's neck prickled as if someone was watching them. "I can feel people watching us. Everyone is curious about the new Lady McClain." "I'm not quite certain that's it," she said. When they reached Kirstein's cottage, Kirstein herself answered the door. "Derek. 'Tis good to see you. Come in." She opened the door wide for them. "Is Aileen here?" Heather asked. "Aileen? Nay, of course not. She moved into the keep right after ye married." Heather's eyes widened. "No, she didn't. I haven't seen her since the day of the wedding." Kirstein frowned. "I haven't heard a thing from her. Where could she have gone?" "I will go and ask her sisters about her. If she went anywhere, she would have told one of them. They are all very close." Together the 3 of them walked to a cottage across the small village. Kirstein knocked and a young woman who looked a lot like Aileen came to the door with a baby against her shoulder. "Mother? Laird? Have you seen Aileen?" Kirstein asked. "I should have known you would come." She opened the door wide. "She ran off to marry one of the McPhersons." Kirstein shook her head. "Why didn't she tell me?" "Because she knows how the whole clan feels about their clan, and she didn't want to disappoint you." "Fiona, why didn't ye tell me?" Kirstein looked very disappointed. Fiona shrugged. "Because me sister asked that I keep her secret." She sighed. "She is fine and off living with the McPhersons clan now." Kirstein frowned at Heather. "Well, the mystery of where me daughter is has been solved, but that leaves ye without a maid." I'll help ye until ye can find another. Thank you, Heather said, but I don't really need a maid. I've been doing just fine on my own. But when the bairns start coming, I would like it if you would see to her needs, Kirstein, Derek said. She is already expecting according to me, father. By this time, they were on their way back to Kirstein's cottage. Then she is expecting. I'll be there in the morning to help. Kirstein ignored Heather's protests. And I apologize for me daughter. I never would have thought she would run away like that. I suppose she thought she found the perfect time for it when I thought she was moving into the keep and ye thought she was still living with me. I'm not upset even a little bit, Heather said. You're not responsible for your daughter's actions. I suppose not, but it still pains me to know she married a McPherson. And that's why you weren't told of it in advance, Heather said with a smile. After leaving Kirstein at her cottage, Derek took her to his brother Callum's house. Callum is the brother who is just a year older than me, and he is the brother I feel closest to. I want to talk to him about Annie being your guard. He is supposed to take on the duty tomorrow. Can the laird not send messages to all these people instead of walking around? She teased. He shrugged. I guess I am not used to being laird yet, now am I? Together, they explained the situation to Callum, and Annie overheard. As long as I can carry me bow, knife, and sword, I will happily watch over ye, Heather. I am anxious to do it. Bonnie will be content with Beth. She loves her grandmother. 'Tis settled then, Derek said. Heather would prefer to be guarded by a woman, and you were the only one who came to mind who could do it. Callum shook his head at his wife. I never thought your manly skills would be helpful to anyone. Well, they are. Annie smiled at Callum. I am happy to be of service in any way I can. I will want the two of you to stay inside the keep. Heather wrinkled her nose. Yes, we'll stay inside. Annie sighed dramatically. Aye. And to think I was looking forward to a spot of hunting while I was out and about with me bow and arrow. Derek shook his head. I am not certain the two of ye should be trusted together, but I pray ye will follow my rules. Callum nodded. I will join you in prayer, me brother. There is little hope for them without God's intervention. Heather grinned at Annie. They would do much better together than she had done with Broderick. That much was for certain. Chapter 8. Having Annie as her guard was much better for Heather than having Broderick watching her every move. Annie was armed, but she was also a friend, and the two women laughed together as they went about their day. With Annie at her side, it was much easier to forget about the danger surrounding her, and Heather was more relaxed. Annie peppered her with questions about how life was in the future, and Heather actually pulled out her phone and showed her pictures of New York City. I didn't know how people deal with so many others pressed up against them that way, Annie said. That looks awful. And where do ye hunt in a place like that? Heather explained about Central Park. You can't hunt there, but it's like an oasis in the middle of the city. Annie sighed. It seems odd to me that people would live on top of one another and then need a park like that. Why wouldn't they just live where it's open and green to begin with? There are lots of jobs in New York, Heather said. Sometimes it's hard to find work when you don't live in a city. But why do they need a job? Can't they just do their part within a community? Heather smiled. Life is much simpler now than it will be then. It's called progress. It doesn't sound like progress to me. Maybe it doesn't. But it's considered that. All the things that make living easier also seem to make it harder. Heather shrugged. This phone I carry gives me access to unlimited knowledge, but it also costs money. I pay for the phone, and then I pay to use the phone. So, I'm working hours every month just for the right to use this object I've already paid for. I never really looked at things that way until I came here. Annie frowned. We all work hard here, but we are working for our clan. We didn't need to worry about whether we will eat, because the laird will provide when necessary. Our clan has always been blessed, well, since we became Clan McClain, anyway. What was the clan before it became Clan McClain? Annie shrugged. I didn't know all the details, but I do know that the clan was starving, and Braden McClain came here with his wife and his parents. When he arrived, he made all of our crops grow overnight, and we agreed to have him as our laird. No one questioned how he made the crops grow? Heather asked. She had to wonder why people didn't think the family was made up of witches. Nay. They were too hungry to care. Many thought he must be a witch, but they believed if he was, he used his powers for good, and that was good enough for the people here. Each of his sons has been as blessed as he was in many ways. Annie shook her head. Gavin McClain was there at me birth, when me mother was moments from dying with me, and he put his hands on her, and she lived, and so did I. He gave her potions after, but she felt the life force flowing from within him, and she always knew there was more to his healing than he was willing to admit. And she didn't think badly of him? How could she? He saved her life and that of her child. It was a good thing, not a bad one. Heather thought about that for a moment, finally nodding. And what about Beth? No one thought it was strange she suddenly appeared and married their laird? Nay. The family is known as an odd one, but they are good leaders. We would be stupid to follow someone else. I suppose you're right. I guess I just thought that the fear of something different would make you less likely to follow them, not more. The fear is there. There is no doubt, but most believe the McClains are good people, and they are happy to follow those who do good things. Annie shrugged. Me family has always been fiercely loyal, especially now that I am married to one of the sons of the previous laird. Tell me about how you became so good with a bow and arrow. Annie laughed. After me mother gave birth to me, and the laird healed us both, me mother was told it would be best if she didn't have more bairns. So, me father decided I was as close to a son as he would ever have. Me mother felt badly not giving him sons, so she let him take me out with him whenever he wanted. Oh, I learned to cook and sew like all the women, but I spent me Sundays with me father hunting, learning to use a sword, and throwing me knife. I am quite skilled, whether anyone else thinks a woman can do those things or not. I'm glad you are, Heather said, shaking her head. Having to spend another day with Broderick leaning over me would have made me go slowly insane. She rubbed the back of her neck, as it started prickling at the very idea. You should stay for supper tonight. Your family, I mean. You've spent the whole day with me, and you've had no time to prepare anything. Annie smiled. There will be potatoes? Heather laughed. It's not Taco Tuesday, so there will probably be potatoes. In fact, I believe they're making scalloped potatoes with ham. A favorite of mine. That sounds like a lovely meal. We will stay to eat it with ye. Annie looked around her, studying the room for a moment. I must admit I keep expecting someone to jump out of the shadows at us. 'Tis strange knowing 'tis my job to protect you from whatever may be lurking. Heather sighed. I wish there was no need to protect me. I feel as if I should be afraid of my own shadow. What good would that do? Annie asked. You need to focus on living and let me focus on keeping you safe. I'll do my very best. It's hard when you know you're in danger, though. I can see that. Several women came into the keep to visit that day and talk with Heather. It was clear they wanted to know the lady of their clan. And where are ye from? A woman asked. Heather smiled. I grew up in the same town that Beth did. It seemed the safest answer. The woman, Fiona, frowned. Beth doesn't talk much about where she is from. Then I had better not talk about where I'm from. I wouldn't want to upset her in any way. Fiona's eyes narrowed. Ye are married to our laird. Ye have to tell us. Beth was married to your previous laird, and she didn't. Heather had no idea what the woman's problem was, but she refused to worry about her. There were too many other things to worry about in her life. When it was time for supper, Beth came in carrying little Bonnie, who went straight to her mother's arms. She rested her head against Annie's shoulder. Did ye have a good day with Grandma? Annie asked the girl. When they all sat down for supper that night, Gavin said a prayer for their safety. As soon as it was over, Heather asked the question burning in her mind. Did you learn anything new today? She asked. Derek shook his head. Nay. I am growing weary of this. I felt the anger again, though, and now it seems to all be directed toward you. None of me brothers or cousins have figured anything out. And they should have by now. I see. Heather rubbed the back of her neck. I want it all to be over. I do too. Beth frowned. I don't understand how someone could have taken such an instant dislike to you, Heather. You have barely been around anyone but family, and we know it's not family who is angry. How do we know that? Gavin asked. What if it is one of the other wives? Upset that their children will never be laird with Heather here? Beth shook her head adamantly. None of my daughters would feel that way about another. There's no way that could be it. Mayhap you're right. What if it is another woman in the clan who is upset that Derek married? Is that possible? Heather pursed her lips, looking at Derek. That sounds like it fits what you're feeling. Anger and sorrow mixed together. It would make sense that it would be a woman scorned. Have you courted anyone? Derek shook his head. I have never even walked alone with a woman of our clan or any other. I am not comfortable with people giving me power. I canna think of a single woman who would think she had a claim over me. It doesn't have to make sense, Beth said, frowning. What if it was someone who just thought you were going to marry them with no reason behind it? Is that possible? Were there any women who were making eyes at you? Derek shrugged. Me whole life girls have been flirting with me, knowing I was the future laird of Clan McClain. 'Twould be ridiculous if one of them decided I was marrying them, though. I have never returned any attentions. That makes sense to me, Beth said. I hate that whoever it is makes you feel uncomfortable. A look in Beth's eyes had Heather wondering, though. Could you ask around, Beth? And perhaps have the other women of the family asking? Then you could pinpoint anyone who felt like they had some sort of hold over Derek. Maybe we could find who it is quicker that way. Beth nodded. I was thinking the same thing. I feel like we're playing one of those murder mystery games where we have to figure out who the potential killer is before they strike. Heather grinned. She knew none of the others understood, and she wasn't sure if it was even possible to explain. Thankfully, no one asked. So, you have everyone asking around tomorrow, and we'll all compare notes tomorrow afternoon. Yes, we'll do that. All but you and Annie, of course, because someone needs to safeguard you. Maybe I should be out talking to people as well, Heather suggested. It might help us find them faster. No. Derek said, shaking his head emphatically. There is no way I will allow you to put yourself in danger that way. The animosity I feel is toward you, and I worry it will be acted on. I can understand that, Heather said. If it was just her, she wouldn't be as worried, but the baby she carried was another story entirely. She couldn't put him at risk. Annie nodded beside Heather. I will not allow her to leave tomorrow. We will stay inside all day. Good, Callum said. I dinna want you in danger either, Annie. I can take care of myself, husband. The look on Annie's face made it clear she wouldn't be argued with on that point. She could take care of herself and Heather, and all would be good. I know you can. Callum took another bite of his supper. These potatoes of yours really are good. Heather smiled at Beth. They're a staple of the American diet in the future. I didn't know what that means, but I am enjoying eating them. Even little Bonnie had eaten everything in front of her. When a chocolate cake was brought out, Heather grinned. They'd been working on perfecting chocolate since her arrival, and by the looks and smells of the dessert, it had finally been accomplished. Beth received the first piece, and everyone watched her as she took a bite. Could use a little more sugar next time, but it's good. At that, they all cut a piece and everyone tried the tasty treat. Heather sighed as she ate the last bite. Not perfect, but it's chocolate, and truthfully, who could ask for more? Not me, Beth said, cutting herself another piece. I'm glad you brought the 21st century with you. Me too. After supper, they brought in all the family, filling the women in on what only the men had known until that time. Beth asked the women, do any of you know anyone who has thought they would be marrying Derek? The women looked at each other, all of them shaking their heads. Broderick's wife said, I know there were several who wanted to be the next Lady McClain, but none of them who would really think it was possible. Derek has spent too much time alone over the years. Beth nodded. That's exactly what I was thinking. I want all of you to go visiting tomorrow. We'll divide up the village between us, and we'll all talk to different people. Then we'll compare notes at the end of the day. She looked at Heather. Maybe we have a nacho night? Heather made a face. I know. We'll do smothered fries with chili and queso. I approve this plan. That cake tonight was amazing. Heather jumped to her feet. That reminds me. I had them bake a second cake. It should be ready. She hurried from the room, only realizing when she was halfway to the kitchens that Annie was trailing behind her. Did Derek send you? Annie shook her head. Nay, I take my guard duty seriously. I see that. And I want to taste the new cake, of course. I asked them to put just a little more sugar in. I hope it turned out a little better this time. When they got to the kitchens, Heather smiled at the women there. Quera, would you mind bringing the cakes out? The whole family is here now. Quera nodded, smiling. I'd be happy to, Lady McClain. Please, call me Heather. I, Lady McClain. Heather rolled her eyes as she went back to the dining room where everyone was seated. 2 cakes were brought out to feed the large number of people there. It wasn't just Derek's brothers, but his sisters-in-law and their children as well. The sheer number of people in his immediate family was overwhelming to her. While everyone ate the cake, Heather watched their eyes light up with excitement for the chocolate. It's good, isn't it? Heather had decided not to have more herself, wanting everyone else to enjoy it. As they all left at the end of the evening, with the women promising to return in the early afternoon, Derek put his arm around Heather. Did you feel safe with Annie? Oh, yes. It felt like she was ready for anything. And she was. Derek felt safe knowing that Annie was the one guarding his wife and son. It made things easier for him. As she lay in his arms that evening, they talked about how the women in the clan must think she was an imposter, there to marry their laird, but someone none of them knew. I haven't gotten that impression from anyone, Heather said, but I can see where some of them would feel that way. We will just have to see how things are in the morning. The following morning, Annie was there before Derek left to train with the other men, and their plan was in place. All the women would be visiting throughout the day, taking treats they'd made to the other women in the village. It was a good plan and a way the women could sit down and talk to the others, learning all they could. Heather watched out one of the windows, wishing they could walk around the lake at least. The lake was so beautiful, no one could resist its charms. Do you want to walk? Annie shook her head. I would like to, but me promise to the laird is more important than what I want to do. Why didn't you read me another of your fairy tales about the Highlands? Heather nodded. Let me go get my iPad, and we'll read. Do you want me to bring some sewing down? Nay. I will spend the time sharpening me knife. 'Twill make me feel more powerful. Heather laughed. Whatever worked for Annie was good enough for her. Sharpening a knife sounded just perfect. As she read from the book she'd started when all the women were together, her lips quirked at some of the things she'd found the most romantic about Highland romances that were completely untrue. Oh well. It didn't really matter. What mattered was that the men in the Highlands were dreamy. And at least Derek was. Why, she'd given up indoor plumbing, cars, and even new romance novels for him. He'd better be worth the sacrifices she'd made. But she knew deep inside he was as she read the story. She no longer longed for a Highland laird like the books portrayed. Why would she? She had her very own Highland laird, and she was in love with him. She felt no need to share her feelings, because she knew he could feel them when he was around her. She hoped he felt the same, of course, but Dr. Lachelle had said it was up to her to get her laird to fall in love with her. Hopefully, she would be able to do just that. Love wasn't something that she'd expected to find so quickly, but with Derek, well, Derek was just the man she'd needed when she'd read all of those books, and the good doctor had sent her to the man she wanted and needed for all time. It was strange how good she was at granting wishes. Now if they could just figure out who wanted to hurt her, she knew they'd be happy for all time. It was time for her to live her own happily ever after, instead of just reading about them. Chapter 9. The following afternoon, all the McClain women gathered in the parlor of the keep. Thankfully, it was a large room. Heather served snacks and hot chocolate to everyone, and the women marveled at the newfound chocolate in their lives. She also had the kitchens make cookies for them, and Quera was again the woman to come in and serve them. Heather smiled at Quera. "Thank you so much. We appreciate your help." Quera nodded as she scurried away. Heather looked at the others. "What have we figured out? Anything?" They went through the other women one by one to discuss who had discovered anything. "The only person I talked to that seemed even the least bit upset is Fiona," Broderick's wife said. Beth looked at her eldest daughter-in-law. "Fiona? Why is she upset?" "She's much too old to think she could marry Derek, and she's married with 3 daughters. It seems she thought her youngest should marry Derek." "Little Blair." Beth shook her head. "Isn't Blair 15? Derek isn't about to marry someone so young." "I still think she might be our culprit," Elspeth said. "It just seems to fit." Heather shrugged. "She did seem rather displeased with me when we spoke. We'll tell Derek she might be the one." They continued through the other sisters until they'd all mentioned everyone they could possibly think of. There were 3 names suggested, but to Heather, none of them really made any sense. "I hope the men aren't disappointed in us," Beth said. "We did try, and I know the 3 of them will be investigated. Derek will be able to tell that's where the anger is coming from if he talks to someone, won't he?" Heather asked. "Definitely," Beth said. "That's why his power is such a good one." "But he canna heal," Annie said with a grin. "That's true." By the time the men arrived that afternoon, and they'd all discussed who they thought it could be, it was supper time. As soon as they'd finished the smothered fries, Derek and Broderick went out to talk to the women in question. While they talked, all the women stayed at the keep, and the other 5 brothers and their father stayed with them. They needed to keep the women safe as they dealt with the matter at hand. It was only an hour or 2 later that Derek and Broderick came back. "It was Fiona," Derek said, shaking his head. "She has agreed to leave McClain land. She said she doesn't want to live somewhere where good women are passed over for marriage to the laird anyway." "Where will she go?" Heather asked. "She hated the idea of someone being banished on her behalf. She said that she has relatives with the Stewarts, and she will join them. The Stewarts are our allies, and they are good people. Fiona and her daughter will be content there." Heather nodded, still uncertain. It didn't seem fair to her that the other women would be forced to leave their home, but she wasn't the person who made the decisions. Thank God. This was definitely something she didn't want to have to help settle. "When will they go?" Beth asked. "Several of my soldiers will accompany them out of our village in the morning and stay with them until they are safe on Stewart land. The other clan will be happy to have them, I'm certain. Fiona's husband will go with them as well, and he is a well-trained soldier. He doesn't want to leave, but he feels he must to protect his family." Derek shrugged. "It doesn't much matter to me whether they are happy or not, though, because I want me wife and bairn safe a lot more than I want their happiness." Heather smiled, as she rested her head on her husband's shoulder. Never in her life had she had to worry about an enemy, and it seemed she'd made one quickly by traveling back in time. It was odd to her. Once the keep was emptied that evening, Heather and Derek stayed up late into the night, talking about their future. Heather felt like things were falling into place easily, though she wished she knew how Derek felt about her. Her uncertainty was difficult, but she'd manage. "Father says the bairn you carry is healthy," he said. Heather nodded with a smile. "He checks me every time he sees me because I'm the future of the clan. It feels strange to have that pressure put on me, but it seems that's how it works with your family." "Aye, it is. 'Tis always been the way." Derek took her hand in his. "And how are you feeling? Are you sick in the mornings?" "Not yet. I shouldn't even know I'm pregnant yet, but your father is a human pea stick." He frowned, not understanding her. "What is a pea stick?" She laughed. "Your mother would understand. It's something from my time." I sometimes feel like you and me mother have a private language only you speak. We do, and it's fun. She grinned at him cheekily. I'm glad there is someone from my time here, because it helps me to be able to speak my truths and have them understood. I ken that. Me brothers and I are the same. We all speak differently than the others because we were raised by mother, who is from a different time. So, we speak differently than anyone else does. We like to be able to talk to one another. Makes sense to me. Have I told you I'm glad Dr. Lashiel sent me to you and not to some other time? Or some other future laird? I would have hated to become a McPherson. It would be a fate worse than death, he said, his face serious. She laughed, surprised at just how content she was with no indoor plumbing. At least she wasn't lugging her own water for her baths. Now if I can just make it through childbirth, life will be perfect. Me father will no let you die, lass. I sure hope not. By the time Heather woke up the following morning, Fiona and her daughter were gone. Annie returned to her everyday activities, and Heather and Beth spent the day together talking books. It felt like a celebration to Heather, knowing there was no longer someone in the clan who had such feelings of animosity toward her. The clan takes our day of rest seriously, as you know. I think we should have a picnic for the whole family tomorrow while we're not working, Beth suggested. Wouldn't that be fun? Heather nodded emphatically. I'm still trying to get all the names straight, so a picnic might help. There are so many people in this family. Beth laughed. It's part of having 7 sons. You'll do the same soon. I guess I will. Heather's hand moved to cover her flat stomach. It's strange knowing I'm pregnant. I told Derek last night that his father was better than a pea stick, and he didn't get it, but I knew you would. Beth laughed. He is better than a pea stick. But no one will get it but me. I'm so glad there's now someone I can share weird little comments like that with though. Me too. I don't know how you made it in this century for so long before you had someone to share things with. I honestly don't either. I love all my daughters equally, of course, but I find myself communicating the best with you. It's so much easier to talk to someone who gets me and where I'm coming from. We should do potato salad for lunch tomorrow, Heather said. And brownies. Yes. Do you know how to make mayonnaise? Beth asked, frowning. Not off the top of my head, but I put some really weird books on my iPad before coming here, and it's in one of them. Beth laughed. You really put a lot more forethought into the journey than I did. I had time to prepare and you didn't. You'd have done the same, I bet. I would have if I'd believed I was really going to go back in time. I thought it was a big joke. I was wearing slacks and a plaid shirt. Gilly was certain I was going to be in trouble for my clothes, and she burned them all. I was so sad I didn't get to burn my own bra. Heather grinned. I don't blame you. I think not wearing a bra is one of my favorite things about this century. I can understand that very well. The picnic the next day was filled with family and laughter. Heather and Beth made fried chicken with the help of the kitchen staff, and they had potato salad, deviled eggs, and brownies for dessert. It was a picnic like they remembered having in their time, but everyone in the family enjoyed it. The day was a fun one for all of them, and Heather was finally able to get out and spend time by the water. It always felt good not to have to be under guard. We're going to need to find you another maid, Beth said, looking at Heather. I know you don't think you need one, but trust me on this. It will help you to have someone you can completely trust at your side all the time. I guess, Heather said, shrugging. She didn't care to have a maid, and she felt like she'd do better without one. We'll find you someone this week, and this time we'll find someone who won't run away to marry a McPherson. I can't imagine anyone running away to marry a McPherson, Annie said, shaking her head. The woman must have been mad. Or in love, Heather said softly, looking at Derek. He had yet to tell her he loved her, but she was sure he knew of her feelings with his power being what it was. Or in love, Annie said, smiling as she looked at Callum. It was too chilly and late in the year for getting into the lake, but they had fun anyway. Gilly and Kenan were there, as were Braden and Katerina. Braden entertained the children by making things grow, and the children giggled and clapped their hands. Heather had brought along a watermelon seed for that very occasion, and she grinned as the children's eyes grew wide when the huge fruit grew and grew. Finally, they cut into it and everyone took a piece. Little Bonnie walked over to Heather and kissed her cheek after her first bite. "I like this, Aunt Heather." Heather smiled. "I guess I did good with the watermelon," she said to Beth. "You did? Was watermelon a New World food?" "I never really thought about it, but we don't have it here." It was a West African thing. By this time, it was cultivated in both India and China, but it wasn't really in Europe until the 1500s. I couldn't risk not having watermelon, though, so I brought a seed. I knew we'd get a million seeds from that one, so one would be enough. You're so right about that. Watermelons for everyone. Beth chuckled. We're making a mess of the medieval diet with all of the new foods we're introducing. Do you mind? Heather asked. Not even a little bit. Beth shrugged. I figure a little watermelon can't hurt anyone, and I sure know that tacos and chocolate won't hurt. We're helping people develop distinguished palates, which will hopefully be forgotten by the time America is discovered. Oh, it will be. Beth shrugged. How can one new food change the world? I have no idea, but there are time ripples, right? That's what the science fiction writers would have us believe. But we don't need to worry about time ripples. We like to read romance. Heather giggled, not sure if she should agree or not, but the logic worked for her. After the picnic was over, she and Derek walked into the woods. Was today hard for you? She asked. I know there were a lot of people around us. He shook his head. It really wasn't. I think you have a calming influence on my gift, he said softly, and sadly, I've never been able to look at my power as a gift before. It always felt like it was a liability to me. I can understand that, she said with a smile. And you felt none of the bad feelings from before? Nothing at all. I am sure everything was coming from Fiona and her daughter. Now that they're gone, it should all be good. Didn't Fiona have 3 daughters? Heather asked. She did, but one is married, and the other is doing fine. I don't think there will be more problems. Good. I don't want to have to worry any longer. When they got back to the keep that night, the couple spent some time just talking about how good the day had been. I loved the watermelon. I hope you have more seeds. She smiled. I made sure to keep some seeds from the watermelon today. It is nice that your grandfather can grow whatever we want whenever we want. I think it's a wonderful gift he has. It is. It seems a great deal more practical than many of the gifts. He shrugged. But now we know why I had mine. To protect you when danger arose. I hope you'll use it again. It seems like a waste to use it just once that way, but we'll see how things go. It will probably really help with our sons. Do you mind that you will not be getting a daughter? He asked. I would have liked to have a daughter, but I'll be fine with sons. I'll borrow our granddaughters and nieces. It will feel my need to be a girl mama. I think 'tis a good way to look at things. If you wanted a girl desperately, it wouldn't change anything. You would still not be able to have a daughter. I know, so I'll just be satisfied with my lot in life. She climbed onto his lap and pressed her lips to his. I am definitely happy with the man I married. I never dreamed I'd end up married to a Scottish laird, though I've spent my whole life wanting to. He chuckled. And it doesn't bother you that you married into an odd family? A family of powerful men, you mean? How could that bother me? He shrugged. I am sure some wouldna like knowing that their life was set before them simply because of the man they married. The 7 sons thing? Derek nodded. And knowing your youngest son will have some sort of power that will change him, and he will lead the clan instead of your oldest son. None of that bothers me even a little bit. With your mother to guide me as well as you, I know I'll do just fine. Heather kissed him softly. Besides, I kind of like you and your family. He chuckled softly. I have noticed. The following morning, Heather went out on her own to walk around the lake. It was something she'd missed while she was cooped up, and for some reason, she'd always found bodies of water soothing. The lake wasn't a big one, but it was still an enjoyable place to walk and think. As she walked, she heard footsteps coming up behind her, and she turned and smiled when she saw Koira. "How are you today?" she asked. Koira frowned. "As good as I can be with me father, mother, and sister banished at your hands." "Your mother and sister?" Heather frowned, taking a minute to understand. "Fiona is your mother?" "Aye, and you made sure she was gone just as soon as you got here, dinna you? Derek was meant to be me husband, you know. 'Tis why I work in the kitchens. Me mother sent me to work there when I was still a young girl, so that Derek would notice me. It was working until ye came along and ruined everything. I'm sorry you feel like I ruined things for you." Heather looked around her, wondering if she could run faster than the girl beside her. Surely, there was no danger anymore though. Derek hadn't felt there was. "Ye came out of nowhere and married the man who was supposed to be mine. Ye have no right to be here, or even breathe the same air he does." Koira made a leap at her, and they both fell into the water. It was much deeper than Heather expected, and cold. So very cold. She kicked away from the other woman, trying to swim to shore, but Koira grabbed her ankle, tugging her under the water. Heather came up, gasping for breath, kicking her hardest to get away. She worried about the baby she carried within her, determined not to let herself drown. Finally, she found the shore and she pulled herself from the water. As soon as she caught her breath, she screamed for help, expecting to see the other woman surface at any moment, but she didn't. Feet pounded toward her and several men were at her side, helping her to her feet. She stood soaking wet, pointing to the water. "Koira's still in there." "Koira?" Derek asked as he reached her side. "Why is Koira in there?" "She tried to kill me. She said you were supposed to be her husband, not mine." Heather shook her head. "You didn't tell me Fiona was her mother." Several men dove into the surface of the chilly water to find the woman, but it took much too long. Heather buried her wet face against Derek's shoulder. "She's dead. She couldn't have survived underwater for that long." Derek led her away, nodding to his brother to help with the search. "We're going straight to me father to make sure you and the babe are uninjured." Heather shook her head. "I'm fine. I know how to swim, but I don't think Koira does." "Not many women do, lass." His arm stayed around her as he led her away from the loch toward his father's cottage. He had to be sure she was all right, and then he'd deal with Koira, if she lived. Chapter 10. Gavin worked on Heather for a few minutes, removing the small amount of water in her lungs and checking on the baby. "The bairn is fine." Gavin's eyes met Derek's. "I am thankful things were not worse." "Aye. So am I." Derek shook his head. "Why did none of us think to tell her that Koira was Fiona's daughter? We were all sure it was the youngest daughter that Fiona wanted to marry me, but it was Koira. It makes sense in a strange way, but I never did anything to make Koira feel there was something between us." "Dinna blame yourself, Derek. You couldn't have known she would go after your wife that way." Beth stared in horror at how wet Heather was. "We need to get you warm, so you don't catch your death." "I'll be fine," Heather said, shaking her head. "I'll take a hot bath when we get back to the keep. I need it, but I don't think there will be any ill effects otherwise. I will make certain to stay on McClain land for the next few days, in case you do take ill," Gavin said. Derek pulled Heather to her feet. "I am taking me wife home and getting her in that hot bath. Dinna worry. I willna let anything else happen to her." As they walked back to the keep, Heather looked at him. "Stop blaming yourself for this. You had no way of knowing it was coming." I should have told you everything. The small detail of Koira being Fiona's daughter would have told you to be careful around Koira." He shook his head. "I didn't know why her mother was projecting hate to you, but not Koira. Maybe Koira had no need to hate me. She was simply planning to kill me no matter what it took." "I suppose that could be true, lass." Derek led her into the keep and called out for a bath for her. She took a dip in the loch, and it was too cold for a lady who was expecting. Everyone immediately jumped to action, getting the tub, and carrying it up the stairs. I don't need to be coddled, Heather told him. You do. I almost lost ye today, lass. I will not allow that to ever happen again. Ye must be warmed so ye willna catch cold. Me father will be on hand, but what if I canna get to him quickly enough? I'm not fragile. Mayhap not, but ye are precious to me. And I willna let anyone hurt you like that again. That's the thing, Derek. I'm not hurt, but she is dead. Why are you still worrying? Derek shook his head. D'ye not see? I thought ye were safe once already, and you almost drowned. I didn't almost drown, though. I'm a very strong swimmer. I just got cold in the water. You need to stop worrying about me. Never. Part of loving me wife is worrying about her. Do you not realize that? Wait, you love me? We are not having this discussion now, lass. Ye are getting into that tub, and ye are going to get warm. Then we will talk, and we will talk as long as ye would like. I canna risk you that way again. I don't think I'm at risk, Heather said, frowning at him. The man was too stubborn to listen to anything she said. Stop frowning at me. You will make me bairn angry with me, and that is not good. Heather laughed at his convoluted thinking, deciding there was no point arguing with him. It would be easier for both of them if she got into the bath and got it over with. She took her time in the tub, basking in the glory of knowing she was loved. He may not have told her in the most romantic way possible, but that didn't matter to her. No, she was simply pleased he cared for her as much as he did. When she finally got out of the tub, she went down to the parlor and found him there, pacing the floor. Why are you still worried? I am trying to decide who will be a good maid for ye. If ye had someone with ye today, that ne'er would have happened. Heather sighed dramatically. Derek, you cannot wrap me in cotton. I can and I will. Derek shook his head. I came so close to losing ye. I canna do that again. She walked to him and wrapped her arms around his waist, burying her face in his shoulder. But can't you see? I'm fine. And the baby is fine. It's Koira who was hurt, not me. But it may not be the same the next time. Next time? Do you see members of your clan trying to kill me every day or something? Nay, of course not, but it happened once. Who is to say it canna happen again? I can say it. Heather shook her head. I'm a strong woman, and I'm capable of taking care of myself. I will have Annie teach me to use a knife, and then you won't need to worry any more. He frowned. Mayhap Annie can continue to guard you. No. I don't want to have a guard. Let me learn to protect myself. Please. It was the please that undid him. He wanted her to be happy, even in his fear for her. Ye are really all right? I really am. I promise. I will continue to be okay, now that Koira is gone. He held her close. I do love ye. Never did I imagine I would fall for someone the way me brothers did. I thought me power would keep me from loving so much. I love you too. I'm sure you already know that though. I feel your love for me, but it is nice to have the words spoken aloud. He stroked her cheek with the back of one finger. On the morrow, I will discuss with Annie teaching ye to defend yourself. She will know the right way, and then I can worry less. Thank you. I know it's hard for you to trust that I will be safe without constantly being guarded, but I need to know that I can have some freedom. At least until ye learn to protect yourself, I'd like ye to have someone with ye if ye go on a walk about the loch. She smiled. I'm not sure I'm going to feel like going toward the lake for a good long while. He chuckled. I dinna know, lass. Ye seem to feel drawn to it. I do. She sighed. The lake is so calming for me. I want to just sit on the banks and watch it. And ye can. As long as Annie is with ye. But only until you have learned to protect yourself. I believe that is as fair on the subject as I can be. She laughed. I'll take it. I'll even be happy about it. Good. Because I dinna ken if I can do better than that. She kissed him and smiled. If I can make it through childbirth with no drugs, you can deal with me protecting myself. It is a fair trade. It was around a month later when Heather was in her room alone, getting ready for her day. She'd already lost her breakfast to the chamber pot and was as spry as she ever felt. She turned around to see a familiar purple-haired figure in the room with her. Dr. Lashiel. Dr. Lashiel grinned at her. I brought Beth her own Kindle and solar charger. I figured she was using yours as much as you were. You knew you were sending me back to another woman from the 21st century? Of course, I did. I probably should have told you, but it was more fun my way. You can't know everything. Dr. Lashiel sat on the edge of Heather's bed, studying her. Pregnant already? Heather nodded. I don't suppose you can send an epidural back in time for me? Lashiel laughed. That's not something I could do. I'd send something else if you wanted it. Heather thought about it, but finally shook her head. Nah. I'm pretty content with what I have. I just have to be careful not to let all of Scotland see the foods I brought back with me. I'm sure. I haven't seen the future change at all since you came back, so I think you're doing good. She looked Heather up and down. Happy? I am. Very. You found just the perfect man for me. Heather couldn't even bring herself to complain about how overprotective he was. I know. I'm good at that. Always have been. I see that. Modest too. Dr. Lashiel raised her arms. If you've got it, flaunt it. Heather only laughed. Thanks for checking on me. There was a knock at her door, and Heather called, Come in. Beth walked into the room, and her eyes grew wide. Dr. Lashiel. She flew into the other woman's arms. I cannot tell you how much I've missed you and your booby bumps. Dr. Lashiel laughed. I do have a way of worming my way into people's hearts. You really do. Beth smiled. What did you bring us? I didn't bring anything for Heather, but I brought you this. Dr. Lashiel held out a Kindle and a charger. I put all kinds of books on it. Thank you. Now I won't have to keep stealing Heather's iPad. Dr. Lashiel laughed. I guess you won't. Anything else you need from me? Beth and Heather looked at each other, shaking their heads. I think we're good. I mean, I've been here for over 30 years, so obviously I'm good, Beth said, and Heather is adapting nicely. Indoor plumbing is missed, but we can live without it. I can't do much about that. No, I know you can't. Beth sighed. Is this the last time I'll see you? Probably, Dr. Lashiel said softly. Unless someone else wishes to come here. That would be nice. Beth shrugged. Though if the Middle Ages become populated with too many people from the 21st century, things could get weird. As they said their goodbyes, Heather realized she needed one more thing from Dr. Lashiel. Let my friends know I'm all right, will you? I know they have to be worried sick about me. I will. Dr. Lashiel raised a hand in a wave goodbye as she faded from view. Beth put her arm around Heather. Our last connection to the 21st century. I'm starting to like the 14th century a lot. I like it a little more every day. Beth smiled. My children and grandchildren are here as well as the love of my life. Soon you'll have children here too. I know. It seems so strange, but right at the same time. I'm where I belong. Epilogue. Heather looked out over her 7 sons, the last 2 twins. That had been a surprise to her, but she knew Gavin had known all along. He told her some surprises needed to be kept. They all walked together through the meadow, and she smiled happily. The youngest 2 were only 3 years old, and Bryson's powers had yet to manifest. She was glad Bryson and Kendrick weren't identical, because it was hard enough having twins as it was. As they walked toward the woods, a wild boar came out, charging at them. She screamed at the top of her lungs and pulled her knife, which was her constant companion. She never had to use it though. Never before that day anyway. Bryson raised one hand and said, "Stop." She was startled when the beast completely stopped moving. It was as if it had to do what Bryson told it. She hurried to her son and hugged him to her, determined not to let her child be hurt by the animal. Bryson looked at her and smiled. "Don't worry, Mama. Boar is my friend." "Be careful," she said as Bryson approached the boar. "It's not tame." He laughed. "Mama is afraid of you, boar. Go back to the woods now." The animal turned and trotted away as if it had never intended to hurt anyone. Heather took a deep breath and shook her head. Her son had found his power. And it was a good one.